In 2020 Select Board meeting at 6:32. Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag. I'll have to wait a minute. I have to put the flag here. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
to the
republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing to honor our servicemen and women serving our country, both here and abroad, and past and present. And if you do, would you mind that I want to say a little prayer? Please bear with me. Dear God, please hear my prayer. Our country is crying, screaming from within. We need your guidance and help to get through all this that is happening in our great country of the United States of America. Please bless us all and keep us safe and healthy. Bless our police, our fire, our doctors, our nurses, our first responders, our hospital staff, our nursing homes, the staff and medical support teams. Bless our great teachers that have made their students feel good about themselves once again. Thank you, teachers, and their assistants, and all the staff from the Dartmouth School Department. Just remember this, please. Our country is one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. If anybody else would like to make any other comments before we start, I will go into the meeting. So we have 6:30 meeting appointment, not your average Joe's, change of DBA to Joe's Original, 61 State Road, Dartmouth, Massachusetts. Mr. McGinnis.
The applicant should be here in the meeting for Joe's.
Talked to him earlier.
Is that
Stephen.
Stephen? All right, let's just skip it.
All right, we'll go to our second appointment. John Beauregard and Scott Alphonse, Greater New Bedford Refuse District Committee, annual update. Gentlemen?
Well, good evening. In this very unusual circumstance, thank you for having us. I do want to introduce Scott Alphonse, who's the Executive Director, Christine LeBlanc, and our newest member, Mike Gagne. Where's Mike? He was here a minute ago.
He was here, yeah.
Okay. He's our newest member, and they are the Dartmouth representatives to the Greater New Bedford Regional Refuse District. We just wanted to take a few minutes. I know there's been some questions from both FinCom and from the Select Board with regards to the operation at the Refuse District. So we thought it would be a good idea to kind of get together and talk about this and have Scott bring you up to date on some of the plans and the future plans for the refuse district. So keep it moving. I want to introduce Scott Alphonse, and he'll have some comments for you.
Thanks, John, and thank you to the Select Board for having us tonight. Can I share my screen? I have two quick slides that.
Yes, please do. Please.
Okay. So can everyone see this?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Let's see. Try this one more time.
Yep. Here we go.
There we go.
Great. Can you move that to the left a little?
I'm trying to get it in the slide mode. Let's see. Is that any better?
Yes.
Not
That's
bad.
fine.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, two questions that we get asked most frequently are, how much longer will Crapo Hill landfill last, and what will we do once the landfill reaches capacity? So tonight I thought I'd focus a little bit on the answers to those two questions. And the first the first slide I have here is a capacity update. So basically, the rate at which the landfill fills up is a function of the utilization. So the more waste that we put into the landfill equals fewer years of capacity that we have. We started operating cell 6 in April of 2019, and that's where we are right now. When we talk about landfills, we tend to talk about them in cells. Cells are these discrete areas that are constructed. They have defined boundaries, and as the landfill increases in elevation, the cells sort of blend together. So while a cell may be very obvious in its early stage, the boundaries of the cell may be obvious. As we rise in elevation, you really can't tell where one cell ends and one cell begins. So cell 6 operations will eventually blend with the other cells 3, 4, and 5. And those 4 cells together will give us about 9.6 years of capacity as of July of last year. So we're looking at about 8.6 years of capacity left in those 2 cells. After those, those 4 cells together. After those 4 cells reach capacity, we will move on to cells 7 and 8, which are to be permitted and constructed. And those 2 cells will give us about 2.8 years of capacity. So altogether, we have about 11 and a half years of capacity remaining in the landfill. I just wanted to note that when Crapo Hill opened in January of 1995, it was expected to be a 20-year landfill. So due to a number of circumstances, including waste reduction, settlement, we've certainly got more life out of the landfill than anyone had ever anticipated. So then the next question, I can move my slide, that I wanted to address is the question, which is what do we do when the landfill reaches capacity? And we've been discussing this quite a bit with the district committee and have really embarked on what I think is probably one of the more comprehensive plans that the district has done since the landfill opened. We recognize that the landfill offers a finite resource. So in recognizing that, we started working on a scope of work for a long-range plan. And it's a pretty detailed scope, and it's in draft form right now, but in very general terms, I'll talk a little bit about the issues that we hope the plan will address. The first one is maximizing the existing capacity, and this can be done through a number of waste reduction efforts like those that are currently underway. The district works very closely with the Dartmouth DPW, and we enjoy a very good working relationship with the folks there. They do a tremendous job. We also work with the City of New Bedford Department of Facilities and Fleet Maintenance to ensure that residents have access to good information on recycling and waste reduction. One of the other elements that we're looking at a few of the other elements that we're looking at analyzing are options for expansion. Now, this could include expanding into areas in the landfill where we've already had settlement, and these are in previously landfilled areas. As the landfill settles, we actually can gain capacity, and we'll look at whether or not it's feasible to go back into any of these other areas and reclaim some of that airspace that has been recently gained. We'd also look at analyzing the feasibility of new cells in other previously undeveloped areas around that are contiguous to the existing landfill. The second thing we'd look at is alternative technologies to reducing waste. There are a lot of newer technologies out there to reduce waste. For example, the district, although this isn't a new technology, the district leases land to a company called Commonwealth New Bedford Energy, or CNBE as we refer to it. And CNBE operates a pilot anaerobic digester. The anaerobic digester is basically a facility that takes in organics, in this case, pumpable or liquid food waste, places it into a digester and digests it. From that digester, they recover gas, and they're able to burn that gas in the landfill gas to energy facility that's at the landfill right now. We also envisioned the possibility of scaling that plant up to a full scale. Right now it's pilot scale, and did a very formal solicitation And it was a very lengthy negotiation, and we were not able to reach an agreement with the party. It was right around that time that the district really started to take a long, hard look at what direction it should be going in the future, the long range. So we thought that this would be a very good element of our long range plan. There are other technologies out there that are probably worthy of analysis in the plan, and we would really encourage a consultant to take a strong look at what other technologies are available and how those might fit into the district's strategy. And then the final element that we want them to look at is off-site disposal options. The plan should look at disposal technologies that are off-site, but that may be complementary to the district's operation, or they may operate simply as a standalone technology. And this would, example of this would be sending waste to an off-site facility such as a CMAS waste to energy facility in Rochester. The final element of the plan would be evaluating the district's long-term financial strategy. This would include a thorough evaluation of our financial strategy to ensure that our approach is sound. We've already embarked on this, on certain elements of this. For example, the district has engaged an actuarial consultant to conduct an analysis of the district's OPEB assets and liability. Due to the number of employees we have, we can rely on a computer model to evaluate OPEB liability, and that's what we have done for several years. And the district has created a OPEB trust and has been funding that trust. However, given the fact that the district is or could be a limited life entity, meaning that it may have a finite life, the committee wants to be certain that it is not going to encumber the town or the city with unfunded liabilities in the future. So that's why it's very important for us to know now what the future liabilities are and plan for those future liabilities. We recognize that we do have limited life, and that means that we have limited ability to generate revenue. So we maintain reserves for what we hope to be most of our future liabilities, such as landfill closure, post-closure monitoring of the landfill. Once the landfill closes, the Mass DEP requires a minimum of 30 years of post-closure monitoring. The district recognizes that even after 30 years, there's likely going to be monitoring requirements. And we've already started to plan for that post-30-year post-closure period as well, too. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gracie. Sorry. Mr. Gracie, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Scott, I'm just curious why the folks running the pilot anaerobic digester were not interested in expanding.
They were the sole proposal that we received. We did negotiate for almost a year, and when we issued the RFP had a contract in it that was expected to be the contract that the successful proposer would enter into. And then in the course of the negotiations, we started to get very far afield of some of the key components of that contract, and it became apparent that it would be in the district's best interest to reissue an RFP if we wanted to move forward with a full-scale project.
Okay, so you view that as still a possibility, or is that a dead end?
I think it's still a possibility. I reserve comment on that from the folks at CNBE, but they are in a very advantageous position in that they own and operate a landfill gas to energy facility there that could be used to combust any of the gas that would be produced from the AD project.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Herron.
Scott, what is the actual cost for the town to remove the waste? Is it $25 a ton?
We assess the city and the town a total of $865,000 a year. Dartmouth's portion of that is roughly around $95,000. And it fluctuates depending on how much waste comes from Dartmouth and how much comes from New Bedford. If we don't typically charge a per ton cost, we just charge the assessment. But if you were to break it down to per ton, it is roughly $25 a ton.
What do our surrounding towns pay for how they dismantle?
It's obviously they'll pay more than $25 a ton. I mean, the market rates for waste disposal range from $70 to $100 a ton, really depending on the contracts that are in place. Some towns may have a better contractual arrangement depending on when they entered into contract.
You also mentioned about the town. I recently sent an article to Sean regarding the city of Taunton, who are facing some real challenges on their refuse removal right now. To say it would be a mess would be an understatement. And one of our goals as a committee is to never come back to the town and say, oh, by the way, we need X amount of money in order to make the next, in order to build the next cell, or in order to continue operations. So I think we're well positioned, moving forward, that we will never have to do that. And that's thankful for the town for the support, as well as the city of New Bedford.
Could we like transport some of our refuse to CMAS in exchange for some of their ash, and would that extend our landfill a couple more years?
That is one of the elements that we plan on looking at as part of our long-range plan. I mentioned that we were looking at off-site disposal options, and I think the way I described it is that would be complementary to the district's operation. That would be a perfect example of one that would be complementary. Obviously, it would have to be a negotiation between the district and CMAS, but that is similar to what the town of Bourne takes ash from CMAS, but they don't send their trash there. They still landfill their own trash.
And what do they do with the ash?
They landfill the ash in the town of Bourne landfill.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Tattelbaum.
We've heard from our own DPW. Thanks for a great presentation. Really well done. We hear from our DPW in regard to recycling, and I hear it in my business all the time, that the volatility of recycling product and where it's going, and China and cardboard and all those kind of things. And it seems like it's an ever-changing environment. Could you comment on that, and what role that might play down the road, where the ability to recycle becomes either possibly strapped by these kind of limitations, if there aren't in your mind?
Well, I wish I could comment on the future, because that would mean I had a really reliable crystal ball. It is really volatile. I mean, especially in the last 2 years, there's been such volatility in the market like you've never seen before. One of the interesting things is when the China Sword Initiative, which was the initiative by China where they stopped taking in recyclables from the U.S. due to contaminant level, and that required that the U.S. really step up its recycling processing efforts to make sure we offered a clean product. People thought that was the beginning of the end for recycling. Yet the markets have stabilized. In many cases, they've improved. So, for example, very recently, as a result of the COVID pandemic, we've seen better markets for paper and cardboard, just because the demand is so great right now. There's so much packaging and shipping going on. So it's anybody's best guess. The best thing that we can do, and this is what we strive to do, and this is what the town strives to, the DPW strives to do, is put forth the best and cleanest product that you can offer. And that's the best way to ensure that you have a continuous outlet for your recyclables.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Gracie.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for the update. And also, I think it's important that we be kept abreast of how the year guesstimate, that's now 11.6 years, I believe, if I remember the number correctly, is going, just in case we have to do something. We need as big a jump on that as possible. So if you could please keep us updated. I don't know if it's, a 6-month report or a year report or something, just so we know the progress and what the likely future is going to be.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, you will definitely see the result. We're working on the long-range plan, so you'll definitely see the result of the plan. We'll be hiring consultants within the next few months, work through that, and hopefully by the end of the year have something in place.
Okay.
But at least we're talking once a year for sure. And as we move forward, maybe we'll need to talk more often.
Sounds
Anyone
good.
else? Sean?
6 months.
6 months.
Every 6 months, we should get something. Just even if it's just, hey, we're still here, we're still working on our plan, just something every 6 months.
I mean, I could certainly provide a written update every 6 months as to where we are.
Yep.
Yeah, because the last thing the district, especially Dartmouth and New Bedford, we don't want to, all of a sudden we get the estimate that it's 11 some odd years, and then 5 years from now it's like, okay, this is what's happened and everything, and now all of a sudden we got to do something within a short period of time. I'd rather find out what's going on as we go up to it, and then if it is a true 11 years, begin planning for what's to come in 11 years at year 5.
Agreed.
Solutions. I mean, the planning will still continue, but this is solutions. And I excuse for the poor video because my computer just died in the middle of this whole thing, so I'm on my iPad.
I thought you were doing somersaults.
Mr. Herron?
Scott, are all the trucks that enter the facility, are they equipped with GPS?
So actually, we talked about this once before. The trucks that the town operates and that the city's contractor operates are equipped with GPS. As far as the trucks that the commercial haulers operate, most of them are not.
Do some of the New Bedford, do some of their trucks, are they sometimes fill-in trucks where a truck can, be used that day because a truck with GPS broke?
Yes. Good example. You may have seen an article in the paper today regarding some of the labor issues that ABC Disposal has had. And ABC Disposal is the contractor for the collection in New Bedford. As a result, ABC, when they have labor issues or they have equipment issues, they sometimes substitute trucks. Per their contract, they're required to have trucks that are dedicated to the collection in New Bedford. And those trucks are supposed to be labeled City of New Bedford. We do occasionally see trucks that are labeled from another community. And we have, for the last several months, we've been noting the truck number and then confirming with the city representative that the truck is in fact collecting at a location in New Bedford. The city staff has access to that GPS system, so they can go on in real time and look at truck 153 and see where 153 is to make sure that it's not collecting in some other location.
Thank you.
Does that happen at all?
No, well, not that we've seen. They do substitute trucks, but we've never found a truck that's come to our facility that has been collecting in someplace outside of the New Bedford, the city of New Bedford.
We need to be on top of that all the time, I'm sure. Anyone else? Mr. Gracie?
Thanks. Yeah, just one more thing. Since the city of New Bedford contributes much more to the landfill than we do, I'm wondering how enthusiastic they have been with considering the alternatives, or is this something that Dartmouth is basically driving the bus on?
They have inquired about what the district is doing to look at alternatives. I think Dartmouth has been a little bit more inquisitive about it, but I know that there's certainly interest from the mayor's office and from the Department of Facilities and Fleet Maintenance for the city.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate
you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Have a good night now.
Yes.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you all. Be safe, please.
Will do.
Mr. McGinnis, Mr. Silverstein was just texted me and he said that he was under the impression he didn't have to be at the meeting, that it was only for a DBA change, but
Correct. Well, generally there's a representative. I don't know if he has a counsel here or.
no, he would have been on. He just didn't know.
Okay, well, the board can still take action on it.
Well, so that was the 6:30 appointment. Change of DBA to Joe's original 61 State Road, Dartmouth, Massachusetts.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to allow the change to DBA to Joe's original 61 State Road. Mr. Tattlebaum?
Just a comment, I'm in favor of it, but is there precedence being set here with the person
We've done-
not being here, or is it
We've done this
not?
before. No, we've done this before.
Okay. Yes,
So, Mr. Tattlebaum, yes, Mr.
yes,
Mr. Gracie?
Yes.
Mr. Herron?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Mickelson? Okay, change of DBA is affirmed. Mr. Beauregard, so, new business. New town meeting, Anthony Savastano, Dearest, Melissa Haskell, and Chris Michaud. Are we all in the meeting?
no.
No.
Here's Melissa.
I'm here.
Anthony's here.
I believe everyone is. Yes. We also have Lynn, the town clerk, and Greg Barnes.
Yeah, all right, yeah, I see Greg, yeah. All
So
right,
we've been meeting regularly to discuss, what to do about town meeting in light of the governor's emergency order. We've gone over a variety of options. I think at our last meeting, the group came to the consensus that it seemed like a remote meeting would probably be the best alternative to try to accomplish this spring annual town meeting. In your packet, I think you see some of the notes that we put together, potential town meeting dates. Also, when the warrant would need to be mailed out, the form of a remote meeting, which would be Zoom. It seems to be very successful. We've used it quite a bit here in town. We're using it right now. We have Chromebooks that the school is willing to lend out to town meeting representatives for their use for the annual town meeting. And we've worked up some logistics. I think you can see those in the sheet that was sent to you. Basically, we would draft instructions on how to access the Zoom, how to display their names properly, possibly include their precinct number with their name so they're easy to identify the precinct. How to, general use of Zoom, showing and hiding video, unmuting themselves, how to use the chat feature to ask a question, because if we did it with over 200 possible town meeting reps, we would have to mute the majority of them. They would have to use the chat function to ask questions or request to speak. And then, there's some possible issues. There's Wi-Fi issues with people at their homes. I mean, that's kind of out of our control, but there's many areas that provide free Wi-Fi. Making sure that we have the correct names displayed is really important because we'll need to identify them for roll call votes. And we just want to make sure we have the ability to have a quorum. So, in light of that, I should mention that the bill is still in legislature or in being bounced back and forth, and it has not been approved yet. So this is assuming the bill that's in the legislature currently is approved. And if that is, we'll be able to have the remote town meeting. Everyone assumes it's going to be approved. I don't know why it hasn't yet. Everyone seems to be in consensus, but I'm not sure why it's stuck at the state level. In order for, in reviewing the bill, the wording of the bill, there's some criteria that needs to be met in order for the board to vote to have a remote town meeting. I'm just going to read through this quickly because there are important points, and part of it is being done tonight with the moderator being here. But according to the legislative bill, the moderator must request the select board to call for a town meeting to be held through remote participation by means of video conferencing platform. And this request is kind of what we're going to cover tonight, but the request should include the moderator's determination and request to hold the town meeting through remote participation. The video conferencing platform, we've discussed that, would be Zoom. The moderator will require a certification that they've consulted with the local disability commission or the Americans with Disability, or the coordinator for American with Disabilities Act compliance, and has received recommendations for ensuring the highest level of feasible access to the public. Certification that the moderator has tested the video conferencing platform to his or her satisfaction, to confirm that it will enable the town meeting to be conducted in substantially the same manner as the meeting occurred in person at a physical location. This includes the ability for the moderator, all town meeting members, other town officials, and any other interested members of the public to identify and hear the moderator and each town meeting member who attends and participates in the remotely held town meeting, the ability to determine whether a quorum is present, the ability for the moderator to determine when a town meeting member wishes to be recognized to speak, make a motion, raise a point of order, or object to a request for unanimous consent, the ability for the moderator to recognize the town meeting member or town official to speak and to enable that person to speak, the ability to conduct a roll call vote, the ability for the interested members of the public to access the meeting remotely for the purpose of witnessing the deliberation, and the ability of the town meeting to be recorded. The town meeting will be run essentially the same as the select board meetings and many other meetings, posted on Zoom. The links are posted. It's also shown on YouTube Live for the members of the public. So most of what it's asking for the moderator to certify is included through the use of Zoom, and we have instructions for that we've been using regularly.
Wait a minute, excuse me. Does DCTV have the capabilities of handling 200 people?
Yes, it'd be similar to how they're handling this now. Most of the users would be muted, and you'd have to use the chat function to ask to speak or make a motion. I'll go further. That's just covering all the information that's covered in the proposed legislation. I've kind of gone over what the moderator's request to the select board would be. We'll put that in writing. But the select board needs to vote upon receiving the request. And I'm just going to go through the procedure that's written so you can all get a feel for what's required. If the select board votes to approve the town moderator's request, the warrant mailing must include the Zoom meeting information and the YouTube Live information. So we'd have to modify the warrant to include that information. Also, what needs to be included in the warrant is the moderator's request to the select board. And also the notice must include the date, time, and place for the town meeting to be resumed if town meeting does not approve conducting the town meeting remotely. What this means is if the board votes to approve the town meeting remotely, we go to a town meeting via Zoom. Town meeting, the first thing they need to do is vote to approve the use of a remote meeting to conduct the annual town meeting. If they vote to approve the use of using a remote town meeting, then the town meeting goes on. If they vote to disapprove the use of remote town meeting, then the warrant must include a date and time to resume a town meeting in person. So this is something that the board would have to select. Would have to talk about that. After that, the town clerk needs to submit a certified copy of the vote of the select board and the request of the moderator to the attorney general. And that's it. So there's quite a process involved in being able to conduct the meeting remotely. I think we've covered most of that. We can put it in writing.
I got you.
Really up for the board to discuss at this point whether it's something that they want to pursue.
That will be a challenge, to say the least. Gracie.
Yes, the last time we met, we talked about and asked for a survey to be taken of town meeting members to check, among other things, their appetite for doing a remote computer-driven meeting. I know my wife and I have town meeting members. Neither one of us got a phone call from anybody. So what happened?
We did not have contact information for all the town meeting representatives.
Really? I thought the town clerk has a list.
Yeah, I thought so too.
She has a list, but she does not have contact information for all of those members. So probably 60% of the members we have an email or phone number for.
So we still have no sense of whether we even come close to a quorum.
Well, we have enough laptops to provide to the town meeting reps, and we'll have to get notice out to them in order to have a quorum. So we need 152 online to have a quorum.
Yeah, having the equipment is different than having people have an interest in participating that way.
Yes, Melissa.
So could you help me understand? So we spent a lot of time thinking about how to effectuate a town meeting that was accessible for everyone to participate in so that we could accomplish the work of town meeting while keeping people safe. Because one of the concerns about an in-person meeting is, you know, the congregating and sharing of the coronavirus and I mean, I don't think we want to be making headlines as being the next Biogen. And we also thought that an in-person meeting would be would cause some people to choose not to attend because of the health risks. After deliberating and thinking about all the possible options, it seemed like a Zoom meeting was the best option. And we certainly consulted Mr. Michaud from the Dartmouth Board of Health to work through these issues with us. And I think it's important and the most responsible choice for us to go ahead with a virtual meeting, a virtual town meeting that allows us to do the work of town government while still keeping our population safe. I think that's part of our responsibility as elected officials to help to maintain the safety of our constituency and not force them to make a choice between executing their duty as a representative of their precinct and compromising their health potentially, or that of a family member at home, because, you know, any sort of exposure is not just for the person that's there, but may expose a broader population. I think that one of the things that we can do, Mr. McGinnis did a nice job of laying out all the requirements. One of the things that we also talked about doing was a practice session to enable people to participate and try it out and see if we can't work out any of the kinks in advance of an actual town meeting. And then we thought through how we provide some access to people with the borrowing of laptops if people don't have access. You know, I'm not sure what the other kind of options are, but we spent a lot of time trying to work through, is this something that would be feasible should the legislation pass?
Thank you, Mr. Tattlebaum.
Do we know of any towns that have actually tried this process up to now?
The legislation hasn't passed yet, so
Right.
no.
Any plans of towns that have it? So
I'm a member of the Massachusetts Moderators Association. It is one of the things that the Moderators Association met back in June. Back in May, because it's just June. Back in May, and we were all talking through some of the logistics about how to do this. We are in a better position as a representative town meeting because we have the legislation is providing us with an opportunity to do a remote meeting. It doesn't seem like Open Town Meeting has that option, and it was one of the things being explored by all of the representative town meetings that were the moderators that were in attendance. They were trying, oftentimes their town meetings are earlier in the calendar year, and so they kept kind of pushing it out and working with their select boards to come up with a safe alternative for their constituency as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Haskell, are you comfortable with this?
I am. I think it's either this or we push it off until the fall, but I'm not sure that we don't have a resurgence of this virus in the fall. I think that we can do a reasonable job of, so I certainly think it's best if we choose the warrant articles that we need to most get done right now to keep town government operating as efficiently as possible. Do I think we should, fill the warrant with some of those things that might be able to be pushed off to the fall? I think the warrant is certainly the purview of the select board, so it's not my intention to overstep my bounds. But my recommendation would be, if there are things that could be pushed to the fall when we might be able to do a meeting in person, that we do that. I think there is a reasonable chance that we end up doing another virtual meeting in the fall because of the health concerns. And I think it's important that we listen to Mr. Michaud as a representative of our Board of Health along those lines. But I think we can do this, and I think we can be reasonably inclusive. And I have not checked to make sure, and I will endeavor to confer to make sure that this is as accessible a meeting as possible to those that may have some limitations.
And we can do a lot of the voting in blocks of, some of the questions will be, just housekeeping. So a good deal of the votes could be done very quickly.
So we looked at that, and as I looked at the proposed warrant or the draft warrant that I saw, and I know you haven't finalized it, it seemed like there were only a couple that could be done as part of a consent agenda. And it would certainly require a roll call vote, and I think it will be a different experience than when we're in person. But I don't think it's going to be bad, and I think it will allow us to discharge our obligations to the town and allow for good democratic participation that we've come to expect from town meeting.
When we had this conversation, our meeting last Wednesday, the last version of the statute or the act that has not yet been passed read, any means that the moderator determines accurately and securely record the votes of those entitled to vote at the meeting, including but not limited to roll call vote, electronic voting by ballot, voting by phone, or a combination thereof. I don't know if that language has changed or not. And I know, Chris, you're on this meeting somewhere?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. You were speaking or trying to reach out to somebody today to find out the status of the pending legislation, excuse me.
I did reach out to Audra at Senator Montigny's office, and she did get back to me at the close of the day and indicated that the bill is working between the two chambers. They had hoped to have it returned to the Senate today. However, it was not, but there is still an expectation that this bill will be resolved in the short term.
Mr. Gracie,
they've been telling us that for weeks, but that's okay. But my point is, it may be, depending on the final version of the bill, there may be another way to do voting without having to call each person's name, as long as the moderator is confident that it's accurate. I don't know how that could be done electronically through clicking a button or something, but we can certainly explore that once we get the final version of the legislation passed.
We are surely in a different time, aren't we?
We are.
Mr. Gracie.
Yeah, thanks. I agree that doing this electronically by computer is probably the best solution, although clearly not perfect. And again, I want to reiterate, we still don't know if people will be willing to even try it. I guess we'll find that out. But the second option, which was clearly better than us trying to meet in a room, because I can tell you if this was going to be in a room, any room, my wife and I were not going to go because of the dead air problem. But Stan had suggested doing something out in the football field. And I know there's at least 2 other towns that are doing that exact same thing. And I'm wondering how seriously that was considered.
So we did, and I will certainly cede the floor to Mr. Michaud if you'd prefer to talk about this, Mr. Michaud. But it is one of the options that we talked about, and we had some concerns about people passing by each other and maintaining a 6-foot distance, getting people in and out of the stadium without socializing, because it is, tempting as people are there and have not seen each other in quite a while to have people that might break that. It's going to be hard to police that and not have people kind of break the 6-foot virtual barrier between each other. And it would require a phenomenal amount of space. We started to calculate this at the Massachusetts Moderators Association meeting because it's really 6 feet in all directions, right? It's not merely a linear 6-foot space. And Mr. Michaud, I don't know if you had anything to add to that because you had raised some issues with that.
Thank you, Ms. Haskell. No, I do agree with you on all counts. I'd also like to note that, you know, while some communities may opt to take the outdoor avenue, those are the communities that are going to have to do it because they do not have a representative town meeting. They will not have this option as is proposed in the bill if the bill passes. Additionally, I do have concerns that, you know, town meeting, even if we abbreviate it, it, you know, can last a couple hours, and putting our residents out in a football field that will be entirely absent shade will pose a whole new set of health and safety concerns for the town meeting members with the exposure to that direct sunlight and not knowing what the temperature will be on that day. So those are also health concerns as well. And I really want to emphasize that, you know, we will see breakdowns no matter how much we try to emphasize the need. You know, if we held it in that manner, that, you know, people may be seeing others that they haven't seen in a while, and you have those momentary breakdowns. And, you know, we're going to be aggravating a situation that we're starting to see move in the direction that we're all desiring to see. You know, there's a lot of sacrifices that have been made across the town, across the state, across the nation. You know, our businesses are starting to reopen, and the last thing we want to see is the situation get inflamed and then have the governor have to dial back on some of these relaxed measures. Thank you.
Adelbaum.
I was in this month's MMA Beacon magazine. They talked about a town, maybe Lexington, who's going to do it outside. And I first thought it was a great idea, but not only what Mr. Michaud just mentioned about the weather and the sun, but they're having separate places for people to park separately because they don't want to go inside, and they have electronic issues as well. And it became more complicated as you read it, and it sounds like a good idea that's going to go bad and not for us. So unfortunately, I have to agree that's not an alternative.
And you're going to have people channeling into a tighter area if they're going to use the restrooms. You're going to have in there restrooms.
Any way you look at it, it's going to be complicated whatever way we do it. But I would imagine the Zoom application will probably be the best for the town.
I would also add that there will be many people who have never even used a Chrome or a laptop before, but there's also going to be so many people who, for the last 3 months, have used all this technology, familiar with it, and they can help others too, because it's become a way of life, and I think that a lot more people are used to it and have been on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis, and we can help out those who need the help, and I think it would be an easy way. It wouldn't be that difficult to train people to use it and be comfortable, those who need the training.
Anyone else? Mr. McGinnis, this is just a discussion at this point, correct?
No. So
we need a vote on this.
We need a vote of the board, and you'd also need to vote on finalizing or voting to stamp the warrant.
Well, no, I was going to get to that. You want to do that first?
Well, one item we should discuss is if the board wants to do it remotely. Part of the procedures is to set a date, time, and place for the town meeting to resume. If when town meeting opens remotely, town meeting representatives disapprove of using remote town meeting. So maybe that's a date we could pick in the fall. That would just have to assume to be live. I mean, it could change as it gets closer, but you've got to set a date to resume.
Okay, so we want to set a date now? Anyone have a date in mind?
I think we talked about, Melissa, the 19th, was it, or the 18th?
Well, we were talking about the 18th for this June town meeting. I think that they're trying to also set a date for a fall town meeting. Does it make sense to have this, if we get pushed off to the fall, does it make sense to have it coincident with our regularly scheduled fall meeting?
Mm-hmm. So we're going to vote on a June 18th date, is that correct?
June 18th.
So,
your
so I
remote
think it's,
participation.
yeah, so I think as the moderator, I'd be asking that we do a remote meeting, that we do it on June 18th, that we start it at 9 a.m., or I'd be open to starting it earlier if you would prefer, but 9 a.m., assuming that it will take a full day like our regularly scheduled
Won't take a full.
annual town meeting.
Mr. Gracie.
Yeah, I thought we talked about having the town meeting after the election because of the issue with the new town meeting members.
The problem with having it after the election is we have the statute and the charter require the clerk to send notice of the place and time to town meeting members at least 7 days prior. And then we have a bylaw that requires her to send the packet 10 days prior. So June 30th is 7 days after the election. So even if she were to certify all the voting that night or the next day, she still wouldn't have 7 days to send out the packets. Or excuse me, 7 days to send out the notice, or 10 days to send out the packets. So the reason we chose the earlier date was so that town meeting members who are already elected will be attending.
So I guess we're going to need a motion to for the date and time and place, June 18th, remotely at 9 a.m. Need a
So moved.
Second.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a vote yes and a second for the June 18th remote 9 a.m.
One question.
Sean has his hand up.
Go ahead.
I understand trying to stay within as close as possible to what norm is, but wouldn't this be better to have town meeting on a Saturday? I mean, it's extraordinary amounts. I prefer Saturday, June 20th for the meeting. I think we would get a better response. I think we would get more people. Those that are working will be able to participate. We will be able to get a quorum. I don't think if we have it on Thursday morning at 9 a.m. that it's going to work. And I'll be honest with you, I don't see this town meeting going more than 2 hours. And I think a 10 a.m. start is far better than a 9 a.m. start. And I think a Saturday start is a lot better than a Thursday morning start. And that's how I'm voting. So if the motion is for Thursday at 9, I'm voting against it.
Okay, who would like to change the motion?
Yeah,
No.
I'll withdraw that motion so we can choose something else if desired.
Pleasure of the board.
Well, Frank is withdrawing the motion. That's his prerogative. The second would have to withdraw also.
So,
So moved.
Mandelbaum has to withdraw? Yeah,
So
okay.
moved.
Mr. Herring?
Don't we have to have a fallback date, as they said earlier? We're going to have it on the 18th, but if we don't approve that day for the 18th, we're going to have it on another day. I thought that was part of the whole motion.
Right. So, well, you can do it in two motions, but you have to vote for the date of the remote, and then you have to vote for a date in case the remote participation method is disapproved at town meeting. So that would be sometime in the fall, and Ms. Haskell there recommended that we just do it in coordination with the fall town meeting, which was October 20th.
Well,
Okay.
that would have been my next question after this.
What? I'm confused. Sean, Ms. McGinnis, we have to pick a second date? Because the moderator has the authority, if she determines, to move the meeting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
The way the wording is written in the bill, it states that yes, the moderator can choose to do it through remote participation, but once the remote participation meeting starts, town meeting members can vote to disapprove.
Okay.
So that the first vote they need to take at the town meeting is to approve the use of remote participation. If that happens, then the meeting goes on. If they vote to disapprove the use, then the meeting is canceled until the date that's agreed on tonight.
Chris, do you think, based on everything we're hearing, that the fall might be worse than the summer?
So far, that has been echoed through the state and the CDC. So, I would have concerns with any planning for a in-person in the fall as well. So, I think the nice part about this here is it's going to be a good practice run so that we can, likely do this again in the fall and protect our residents.
Do you want to try to do this then, the backup date being earlier than the fall, like July, and then that still gives Melissa powers to kick it? If it seems to me to have the next available date in October is quite a ways away. And if we have the backup date be in July, then we can see how things are going, and the moderator still retains her powers to move it every 30 days.
The other complication that we have to consider for the fall is the flu season, and these two respiratory viruses coinciding at the same time, and the unknown. So we really need to have this work well because we're going to need it for the fall.
Mr. Vines.
Yes, I was just going to note that I've been starting to get numbers as to possible scenarios, and one is a 20% cutback scenario. That was a meeting I attended through Mike Rodricks, who is the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee at the Senate level. So if we were to get a 20% cutback, this would be in local aid. Also, certain assumptions as to what would happen with local receipts. I believe we would have to cut back the budget. And so waiting for the fall would potentially create some problems. So I highly recommend that the backup date be somewhere like July, as stated by Anthony. It can always be pushed back by the moderator. But should we have a worst case scenario, we do not want to wait until mid-October to address it.
Okay, so if we go along with June 20th as a date, so we haven't voted yet, why don't we look at a month away on a Saturday in July, a month after
July 18th.
July 18th, so 7/18.
I would prefer to do a different date in July. I am not, I'm going to be in Maine and I'm worried about the connectivity. I can try and do it from Maine, but I am likely out of town from the 11th to the 25th.
I think that's what we start to have in July.
Yeah.
Make it August 1st.
I'm sorry.
Make it August 1st.
Is that good with everybody? 8/8? Wait.
I mean, the board can decide. I think when you get to July and August on weekends, you're going to have a really hard time getting people together because you have 2 months in the summer where people will have,
People are not going on vacation, Mr. McGinnis.
I think in August.
Some of us are.
They might be, yeah.
You're a minority, I'm telling you, really. Mr. Tattlebaum.
I think that we need to discuss the first date first because it's more important to start with that. And I'm wondering, I share Sean McDonald's idea about a Saturday, but I also think that we do have access to 60% of the town meeting members through telephone or email. And would it make sense? I am concerned about a quorum that we send out immediately, questionnaires or phone calls to these many people as we can, and check the 18th and the 20th, and whatever we get the highest percentage of, that's the date we go with. Because I think that we need to be really careful which date we choose. A Saturday could be great, but I think we'll get some feedback. And then if we have to postpone the meeting, we then pick that same day of the week that people voted on in favor of. This could be a breakthrough for a Saturday. It could be great. Because we've always talked about a Saturday. Maybe this will be the time to check, but I think we ought to test the waters quickly.
Mr. Medeiros, I'm curious. We don't have enough information to contact town meeting members? I can't, you're not on, your speaker's not on.
You're muted.
Yep, okay. I've given either telephone numbers or email addresses. I believed when I was asked for the list, I thought it was for email addresses that were asked. So I only had, but I have phone numbers or emails, whatever's available. We have both.
Well, I think that's a good way to start that list. Both ways, at least we get a hold of it. Mr. McDonald.
The thing is we have to choose the date tonight.
Yeah.
We have to get that done. Now, when we do choose the date, I don't see any problem with breaking up that list and calling people. Every town meeting member has a phone number. Lynn has every single person's phone number. Might not have all the email addresses, but at least they have a phone number. And she and other staff at the town hall can break that list apart, take a precinct per office, call each member, and find out that we're going to hold a town meeting on X number day. We're going to be doing it. We're going to try and do it by video Zoom, and basically ask if they would be interested in doing it this way, just as so that there's no congregation of people to get it done, and that way you would have a pretty good sense as to how the meeting is going to turn out. And at that point in time, if it comes back like 50-50 and we may not get a quorum, then we can decide on the fallback date. And that can be we don't need to have a fallback date tonight. We can discuss a fallback date, but we really don't need to set one up until we know exactly how many people are going to participate. And once we hit that, then we can do that.
You do have to set a fallback date because that needs to go in the warrant for the current date, which say you picked June 20th.
All right, just pick a date. Then pick a date. Then pick
Let's
August 1st.
Let's vote now on the June 20th date if someone wants to make a motion.
Wait a minute, Lynn. Somebody wanted to say something. I only got 4 people on. I'm only using my phone because my computer audio just died.
Okay.
Ms. Medeiros.
All right. So just, if you're going to want us to call and find out if they want a Saturday or a Thursday, and if they want to participate in Zoom, if we could do tomorrow's Wednesday, if we could attempt to contact as many people with the help of other staff members tomorrow, could you folks, would it be too late to do a Zoom meeting on Friday, early Friday? And
meeting Monday. We don't have to do it Friday. We could do it Monday.
Yeah, they have a meeting Monday.
Okay, so we could do it on Monday. Legal letters would have to be mailed out by the 9th. Right, Anthony? I just want to make sure we're on the same wavelength.
Well, not if you're on they have to be mailed out 10 days prior. So if you're going to do it on the 18th, they have to be mailed out on the 18th. But don't you have a sense? I don't know. I thought when we all talked, there was a sense that less people would show up on a Saturday in June.
Well, I think so. In June, I mean, my thing is June 20th, the beaches. So I think everybody's going to be Brown Hill on the 20th.
Not that many, because they're going to be. They're not going to allow that many people.
Well, they're going to put 200, but I mean, I don't care either way. Whatever you want to do is fine, but I don't know if you want to get more of a sense or, and hold off to make the correct date.
Someone made a comment about in the summertime things will be difficult, and that's possible. Maybe they might not be going away, but they plan things, day trips or something like that. But what happened to the June 18th date?
Okay, but if we're going to down the warrant and we don't feel we're going to need, it's not going to be a whole day, can we do it as if we were doing an evening fall town meeting and just do the articles we need to do and do it on the 18th as an evening meeting, just like we do in the fall?
I'm going to guess if people are going to get together to show up for the Zoom meeting, then they're not going to vote against having the Zoom meeting.
You're right, Anthony.
Well,
I expect the Zoom meeting will go forward once we do have it. Once we start and commence, the people who show up would have to vote not to be there, and they're already there, so that would make very little sense to me.
Yeah, the problem I see with that is the people that would vote no on the first article of whether we proceed with a Zoom meeting will not be there. So it's whether we go forward or not, it's purely going to be a quorum issue. If people are not going to want to participate by Zoom, they're not going to go through all the trouble, connect by Zoom, just to vote no that we don't want to do this by Zoom.
Yeah, they won't participate at all.
It's just logical to me.
Just to tell them.
So if we have a Zoom meeting and we have a quorum, chances are we're going to continue to do town meeting.
Correct.
I think people are they're not going to show up for the Zoom meeting and vote not to do it. As Anthony said, they're ready to proceed. That's my opinion. So Mr. Tattelbaum.
I think that we, as this group, we have all agreed that we're going to do a Zoom meeting. We're going to try. And hopefully enough people will show up. I think that we've talked enough over the years about a Saturday meeting to give, I would opt to make those calls tomorrow for either a Thursday evening meeting on the 18th or a Saturday morning meeting on the 20th. Give people a choice. We come back on Monday and let it go. We can finally maybe get some feedback on how people feel about a Saturday. Maybe it'll be a disaster and we'll find that out. I think we ought to plan on a 2 to 3 hour meeting tops, and we ought to do it in the evening or Saturday morning.
Lynn, Monday's the 8th. You would have to mail it by the 8th under the bylaw. You have to mail the packet 10 days ahead of time, right?
Correct, yep.
So you would have to have mailed it out by the 8th. So having a meeting on the 8th is
Eight
not,
doesn't go to work.
it doesn't
Nope.
work.
Not 18th, nope.
Let's just make,
Somebody needs to make a motion.
I don't think, I
I'll
think
make
you
a mo-
guys should
okay.
decide.
I'm gonna make a motion. I'll make a motion that we hold town meeting on Saturday, June 20th at 10 a.m. with a fallback date of Saturday, August 1st at 10 a.m.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion to hold town meeting on June 20th, 10 a.m. and a fallback date of August 1st, 2020.
All right. The
Second,
only comment I made to Sean McDonald is that you're voting for both, saying I'm totally against any meeting in July or August, early August, because people are not going to be, I don't care if they're going to ride to then, but the people are not available traditionally in the summer, and I think we ought to make it the first week in September, but that's okay. But you're asking me to vote for both or none. And
we have to have 2 dates.
vote for one at a time.
We can't do.
All
we can't do
right.
that.
I'll amend my motion that we to drop the 8-1 while make a motion for the fallback afterwards. So just this town meeting on Saturday, June 20th at 10 a.m. Period.
I think Mr. McGinnis said that the statute, I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately. The statute requires the warrant to post an alternative date.
Right, that's the second motion, Anthony.
One vote at a time, that's all I'm asking.
Okay.
All right, so we got a motion to to hold town meeting on June 20th, 2020 at 10 a.m. And do we have a second?
I already did.
Okay. Mr. Tattelbaum,
Yes.
Mr. Gracie. I didn't hear you.
I said yes.
I didn't hear you, sir. I'm sorry. Mr. Herron.
No.
Mr. Mickelson, yes. Passes.
Mr. McDonald has to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's down in the corner here. Sorry. Mr. McDonough, I missed you.
Yes.
Don't
Okay.
vote no, Sean, that would really mess things up.
Yeah.
Motion carries. To have June 20th, town meeting, 10 a.m. Now we need to, Mr. Bonds.
Well, I was just going to say that's for the annual town meeting. You
Yeah.
also have a special town meeting.
Well, then it has to be amended then. We have to do the annual and the special.
No. Make a motion that we hold the special town meeting on June 20th, Saturday, at 10:01 a.m.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Mr. Tattelbaum.
Yes.
Mr. Gracie.
Yes.
Mr. Herron.
No.
Mr. Mickelson. Yes. Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
Okay, 4-1 it passes. I did that on purpose, Sean.
Yeah.
All right, now, fallback.
You got me smiling.
Fallback. You like that, Greg, huh? We need a vote on the fallback.
I'll make a motion that our fallback for town meeting will be Saturday, August 1st at 10 a.m.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion for the fallback date of town meeting and special town meeting for August 1st. 10 a.m. Tattelbaum.
No.
Mr. Herron.
No.
Who knows? Mr. Gracie.
Yes.
Mr. Mickelson. Yes. And Mr. McDonald.
Hmm.
Come on.
Yes.
3-2 it votes. Vote is passes.
Probably vote for the. You should probably vote for the special too.
Okay.
The
Make a
fallback.
motion. I'll make a motion that our for the fallback special town meeting, that will be Saturday, August 1st at 10:01 a.m.
Okay.
Second.
Got a motion for the fallback at 8:01, fall at 10 a.m. 10:01 for the special meeting, and we have a motion of Anna and a second. Mr. Tattlebaum.
No.
No, of course. Mr. Herron.
No.
That's 2. Mr. Gracie.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
I thought I saw Mr. Herron's hand up for a question.
You did.
I thought so.
I was wondering, Mr. Chairman, if we could have had another select board meeting, say Friday, after Lynn had a chance to maybe do her telephone survey, and then we could have had our dates. We would have known what the population was going to accept, either a Thursday or a Saturday.
Right, but we can't do the Friday now because
Won't be enough time, John.
Yeah,
We need-
but this week.
It's still, you mean Friday? Okay, yeah.
Friday.
But how are you going to mail it out on Saturday?
Right, and we can't get we won't be able to get it if we print
No.
it now.
All right, yeah.
Not going to work, John.
She's correct.
Not going to work. Unfortunately, it's just the way they've got it so closely. Okay, so we have a June 20th meeting at 10 a.m. and for the special election, special town meeting and the regular town meeting, and a fallback on 8/1, 10 o'clock and 10:01 for the special and regular meeting, town meeting. Mr. McDonald.
Right now, the vote is 1 yes, 2 against. You and I have yet to be roll call voted.
On the special. Mr.
Yes.
McDonald. Yes, and Mr. Mickelson, 3-2. Okay. So you have your work cut out for you.
Is that 3-2 in favor?
In favor, yes.
Okay.
Now, do you want to vote to stamp the warrant or sign and stamp the warrant with the proposed changes?
I make a motion that we authorize Sean McInnes to stamp the warrant with our names, with our signature stamp.
Second.
We have a motion to have Mr. McGinnis stamp the signing of the warrant. In a second, Mr. Tattlebaum.
I have a comment. We had a request from the moderator to do our best, and I believe the clerk as well, to reduce that warrant as much as we can. And we have, if we're voting now, I assume we're voting for all 22 articles.
Correct, that's the warrant.
Yeah, yep.
Didn't you already vote to put forth that warrant last week?
Yes.
So what are we voting for now? And do we have any option to possibly modify it to reduce? Because I would be very much in favor of reducing the articles to bare bones necessities.
This warrant is bare bones necessities.
Okay.
Yes.
It really is.
So, Mr.
I understand that, John, and
McGinnis said that last week 3 times.
yeah.
I mean, there's a,
You asked him to reduce it and told you again he can't.
What's that, John?
okay. I'm just waiting to be called on.
Oh,
There's a possibility that this whole warrant setup can be done in, I think, no less than 5 votes. You have all the CPC articles can be bunched. All the enterprise funds articles can be bunched. You're going to have the budget all by itself, because that's just a given. The planning board articles can be bunched. And
marijuana.
offhand, the marijuana by itself.
It could go.
That's a possibility.
It could go. Look at the last town meeting, how quickly that went.
Yeah, but this is entirely different now, okay? Because if we're doing it on Zoom, Lynn has to call the names of everybody there. You know, and the thing is that she's going to have to read all names. And if nobody answers, it's a no vote. Well, I mean, it's a non-vote. So she's going to have to go precinct by precinct, name by name, each time we vote. And that in itself is going to take probably 10 minutes, if not a little bit longer. The faster she talks, the faster it gets done. But I think that's why bunching these articles is going to be critical to get things done. Because I'll be honest with you, we're probably going to be spending more time on roll call votes than we are on the articles.
No question about it. Mr. Gracie?
Yeah, didn't I hear somebody say earlier that it wasn't clear whether we could actually bunch or not? Because I'd be totally in favor of doing that also.
So we can use a consent agenda. I am reluctant to do it with most of that warrant, and we can certainly ask town meeting before we consolidate articles, because while we're doing this in Zoom, I want to make sure that we are adequately allowing for the legislative process to proceed, so that if people have questions or they want to call a hold, they have the opportunity to do that. Generally, while Dartmouth does not have a tradition of using a consent agenda, other communities do, and it's generally for those things that are anonymous, unanimous votes, not anonymous. Hello, unanimous votes, and that are very much housekeeping items. A number of those, as I read through the warrant today, those are generally not housekeeping items. There are two that I saw that were CPC. They were CPC, regular budgeting warrant articles. But I think that there is a democratic process here that partly needs to play out, and we can certainly, ask town meeting if there are any pieces of a particular article they'd like to discuss, and provide that option to do a consent agenda. But frankly, I think there is a balance between, speed and the legislative process. And I think the legislative process trumps speed. I'm going to do my best to move it along so that it's not something that people are going to want to drop out of. But I do think I have a responsibility that I need to discharge here.
Well taken. Okay. So that's, I think that's, you're going to do that, Lynn. You're going to get those phone calls out. Utilize whoever you can get in town meeting, in the town hall to help you guys.
Basically, now we just want to know if they want to do it via Zoom or not do it via Zoom.
Why do you even want to ask the question? Why do you want to give them the idea that they have the option?
We've already
decided to do it by Zoom. Everybody here collectively agrees that. I don't think it's a good idea to go asking them if we're doing it right.
I think that
we have a director of public health who I believe is still on this call, who's going to say he's not going to allow people to get together. And I don't know how long that's going to last. And if we give town meeting the option or give them the idea that they have this veto vote, then we may be looking at trying Greg dealing with 1/12 budgets every month till God knows when. Because Chris, are you still on?
Mr. Tattleman.
I think that I agree 100% with Anthony. We are committed as a group to have a Zoom meeting. The question is when, which we've decided. And secondly, I think that along with the packet could be an explanation of what we're doing and why. And also maybe, Melissa, you could also include the fact that you may, whatever the terminology is, bunch things together, but explain why you may do it or make it an option, and expect people to be ready to vote on whether they want to do it or not, so we can inform them of what may happen ahead of time, so they can be prepared for it.
Again, as I said earlier, there may be other options beyond a roll call vote. We'll explore that now and then.
Maybe
so with DCTV and Mr. McGinnis's help, I think we may be able to have another way to touch a button, a yes or no button. I don't know, but we'll explore that as well. But I agree, because I went over the warrant again and spoke to Melissa today as well, and almost every one of these articles has numbers on them, and people may be asking you questions about a particular dollar figure.
Well, maybe you might want to just in that packet send examples of what we're talking about. in bunching the question. Melissa, right?
So yes, I mean, I agree with Mr. Savastano, and I think that we as a group, it would be in our best interest to help try to encourage town meeting members to participate in this forum. And I think that to the extent that we can get a practice session together, to the extent that we can make our best efforts, DCTV has historically been fantastic about helping us educate town meeting members in advance of town meeting. And I think now more than ever, that's a really important opportunity for us to seize, to do our best explaining in advance of town meeting and answer as many questions as we can anticipate and provide as much information to town meeting members as we can. Because while I think Zoom will work, it is going to be, I think, a little bit more cumbersome to have the debate that we typically have in person and to answer questions as easily. And I do want people feeling comfortable. I think it's important that we as a community feel comfortable with the votes that town meeting takes, that the town meeting members feel comfortable. I am concerned about having to do this again in the fall, and I would like to make this as positive an experience for all of us as we can, so that we can still discharge our responsibilities as elected officials and the work and enable the work of the town to continue to move forward. So I'm here to help with any of that. I'm happy to participate with the education of the public, and I'm hoping that all of us on this call will join together in advocating for this venue and for moving this forward in a very positive way.
Ms. Medeiros.
Okay, so I think we should get as much information out in the legal letter as possible, because sometimes the packet comes in, it kind of gets put to the side, and they won't have all the Zoom information or information realizing it's going via Zoom and it's going to happen on a Saturday, and take things for granted that we're still doing things under normal circumstances. So does anybody know when I would be able to get that information, to get the letter out in the mail? I know I have to mail it by Tuesday, but if we could get it out a little early, it'd be great, because that means they get it a little bit earlier and then they'll get their packet.
Yeah, maybe you can even do some kind of introductory letter with big captions. Attention.
Mm-hmm.
Done by Zoom meeting Saturday. Some big letters so that it grabs them as soon as they open the package. Something.
Yeah, all that information needs to be in the warrant packet that goes out, and that's what's in the criteria that I listed earlier. So they need the Zoom meeting ID information needs to be included in the packet that goes out to the town meeting reps.
Anthony, next time, please do me a favor. When you want to talk, raise your hand, please.
I'm sorry.
Mr. McDonald.
Well, I mean, at this point in time, when you send out the information, for those people, one of the things that you should also add in the package is that if you have an email address that is not on file with the town clerk's office, to send it to the town clerk. But if you're going to put in the package that's going out the meeting ID and password, that can be done. You can set up a meeting ahead of time on Zoom, for a day in the future, very easily. And Peter, DCTV, can do that and provide that information to Lynn, tomorrow.
Ms. Medeiros.
I do have a letter, because I try to update the emails periodically, and I usually do it in the Springtown meeting. So there is a paper to go in the packet for updating their information with their email address, telephone, to make sure they're still all updated.
Okay.
Ms. Haskell.
One of the things that I thought we might do is, my intention was to create some sort of a press release to help inform the public. It might make sense if the select board might do something similar, so that they're hearing the message a couple of times, and that we are sort of putting our support behind this kind of a forum. So I'm not sure if the select board would be willing to do something similar.
I think that's a very Mr. Tattlebaum.
In my work every day, I'm faced with people making decisions about conforming to the new rules and the new normal. And I think it's amazing what people have done. Sure, there are always some crackpots who don't do it. but in general, people are willing to listen, to learn. These are engaged people who come to town meeting and committed to it. I think we're committed to doing it this way for everyone's safety, and it's a very positive thing, and I think that we can approach it that way and let people know how we're trying to do the right thing for everybody. And I think we're going to get a great response. And they just want to be informed, and those who need a little help, we'll give it to them.
Great. So that makes sense. Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Medeiros? No?
Yep. Do we have, if this legislation doesn't get passed?
That was my question.
Just curious.
August 1st.
Yeah, you said August 1st, yeah.
We already got the date, so that's why we did it.
Right, but if they're not passing Zoom, if that legislation does not pass Zoom, what is our alternative to have it in person
On the 1st.
on August 1st?
We can make a decision, at some future date, but August 1st seems to be the date for right now.
Okay, so that's the in-person date if we don't, okay.
In person or Zoom if we can't get it done before this, if they don't pass it before this meeting, right?
Right? Mr. Bonds?
Yeah, this question's more for Anthony. If we, on the date we send this out, they have not passed the legislation, would we still want to send it out, not knowing if they might amend the legislation?
Can't wait for this answer.
I think we should hold off until the legislation's passed, yes.
Okay, so we would hold off if it's not passed by the 9th, I guess.
Yes, by the 8th.
Monday, right?
Monday.
Well, she has to send it out by the 9th because it's now the 20th.
Oh, it's the 20th, you're right. So she has to send it out by the 10th, right?
The 10th.
The 9th, that's fine.
Yeah.
So we'll know,
maybe-
Monday night, the 8th.
So if it's not passed by Thursday, then I guess we put this back on the agenda for next Monday, right? Just to be safe.
Suppose,
Put
yeah.
it back on the agenda anyway. We can always remove it from the agenda.
Right.
So the packet has to be mailed by the Wednesday, the 10th.
I don't know what's taking them so long because this has been going on. This has
5
been
weeks.
in final draft
5
for
weeks. They've
weeks
been-
now.
5 weeks.
So unfair.
It is surprising. There's a lot of towns in the same boat that are
Sure.
planning on doing it remotely. So I don't think they were hanging them out to dry. I hope not.
They passed their pay raise faster than they're doing.
Yeah, especially when it's made automatic.
Yeah. Terrific. Anything else on the town meeting discussion? We've got the dates. Ms. Medeiros, you got your work cut out. I'm sure you'll have plenty of help.
I think it will go fine.
I hope so. Thank you.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anthony, you want to stay on for this?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
you need to stick around, Anthony, because for something else later too. So sign the annual town meeting warrant. We've already taken care of that. COVID-19 update.
Yes. So the good news
Yeah,
is
did we just vote to stamp that, sign the warrant?
Did we vote, have a roll call vote for the stamp?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We could-
actually
No.
you
No.
might want to. Yes, let's vote just in case.
Okay, so sign the annual town meeting warrant, okay? Mr. Tattlebaum. We're gonna allow Mr. McGinnis to stamp the town warrant.
Yes.
Mr. Tattlebaum,
Yes.
Mr. Gracie,
Yes.
Mr. Herron,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Mickelson, yes. Okay, you're allowed to stamp the warrant. Thank you. Next up is the COVID-19 update.
All right. Well, the good news is beach stickers went on sale successfully. The line moved quickly, and it only lasted a day, and it's been moving on very well. And also this week we started drive-through tax payments. That's gone very well. We've had a number of people come in, drive around the building, and we've gone out and collected tax payments. So that's been working really well. As you know, the governor's phase 2 order was implemented on the 1st for offices, and so we've been working. Health Director Michaud and our Personnel Director Melissa Medeiros have been working with staff here in Town Hall to come up with plans to protect the health and safety of the employees. They're reviewing those plans currently, and we're developing some procedures and protocols to keep the staff in place and healthy, as well as developing plans for reopening to the public, and we hope to do that within the next week or so in some capacity. So I'll keep you up to date on that. In addition, on the 8th, the governor's phase 2 order starts. We've had a lot of discussion internally and questions from restaurants about the outdoor seating guidelines that the governor has given in that advisory. I asked Attorney Savastano to be here tonight to provide some clarification. The governor's orders allow the select board to be the local licensing authority, and it's given the LLA broad range to issue outdoor seating licenses. Meaning there's 7 criteria that the ABCC requires be met, and they're pretty general criteria, so there's nothing very onerous in there, but it's really the board's decision on what to allow. So I'll let Attorney Savastano kind of talk about what the governor's order has allowed and what is allowed by state law.
When I looked at this yesterday and this morning, I opined to Sean and to others that I think the governor was attempting to assert his authority to waive the Zoning Act, the 40A. He references 40A, local zoning bylaws, conditions imposed through variances and special permits and site plan review. And I also opined that I don't think he was acting any more to control the pandemic by imposing restrictive conditions, but instead he's seeking to jumpstart the economy. He's trying to ease legally imposed restrictions and conditions, and he did not have the authority to do so. After we spoke, Sean, late today, I saw a act in the House which mirrors, which apparently somebody else thought the same thing I did, because now there's an act pending in the House which mirrors the governor's orders. I said that the governor didn't have authority to do this. It would need to be a legislative act to waive the provisions of the Zoning Act and to override our local zoning. Apparently, the House is seeking to do that. So that has not been passed yet, but I know it is now pending in the House.
Well, all well and good, but you know as well as I do that the governor's letter today was not concise at all. There was a lot of gray areas that you could interpret many ways. Again, I don't know where he's at, but he's not mimicking some of our neighbors, the governor in Rhode Island, by any means. And they seem to be a lot more controlled than we are, literally just laying it in our lap to take care of it all. So,
well, he's giving now, it looks like he's now giving you the authority to do it. But I don't think he has the right to do that. But the legislature, if this act passes, the legislature has authority, if signed by the governor, to override prior statutes.
But as I heard from someone this morning, it's like the old Wild West at this point. People come, there's no direction. They want to have outdoor restaurant areas, cafes, outdoor. And a lot of the restaurant owners that are not that large and don't have an awful lot of money to spend, have no idea what they need to do to protect their customers. If they're in a parking lot, then you've got cars going in and out. They need to be protected. We need to make sure of that. Two of the guys said to me, "Oh, that means that we can serve alcohol outside at a bar." We understand that the only way they're going to have alcohol is going to come out of their kitchen in the bar in the restaurant, and no one is in the restaurant. There's a lot of areas that could be catastrophe, and right. These need to be this needs to be taken in consideration. Do I want to give every one of those restaurant owners a chance to make some money back? You bet your life I do. I will do anything in my power, and I'm sure this board will do the same to get these people back into and get some cash in their pocket. My God, it's horrible. But there are some safety conditions, and we need to make sure that the restaurant owners understand all that. But trying to fulfill that safety conditions comes at a cost. And some of these small little restaurants don't have $3,000 and $4,000 to put up. And that's the conundrum now. But we have to be careful in what goes on. But we need to support every last one of these people as best as we can. So, yeah, Mr. McGinnis said he was on the phone since 8:30 this morning with meetings and phone calls, and people, they just want to get back into business. And they read the letter too. But we've got to be cautious in some case. Do we have the policing power to police all the restaurants in this town? I think the big restaurants, the chain restaurants, will do the right thing. They have the money to do it. They can build these nice little patios. They can secure the area with whatever they need to, some type of barriers, cement barriers, or things of that sort. But the small mom and pops, they have a problem. And those are the people we need to help. Mr. McDonald? No, Mr. Tattlebaum?
I think that I couldn't agree more that these people need a break to get open in some form, but there's major liability just for them in terms of setting it up and the dangers set up around it. Where do we get some guidance or choices as to what we can do to mediate this and get people open in a way that's going to be realistic for them and safe for themselves, their customers, and the passersby?
Well, I think the police have something in that's concrete. Pardon the pun at this point, using concrete as a barrier, but they do have a criteria. But at this point, it's costly. Maybe these barriers could be barrels filled with water rather than concrete barriers that are very costly. Let's encourage the restaurant owners to be creative in any way they feel they can, but in a safe way. Yes, Mr. Stavizano.
Typically, the reason why this is done through zoning is we have a very extensive site plan review process with the zoning board of appeal, with the planning board. Whenever there is a new restaurant open or a change of seating or anything, they go through the site plan review process, and our planning board's very thorough, and they've done a good job in drafting the site plan review bylaw. So this really seems to skip that process, but again, as I said, I don't think the governor has the authority to allow that, but the legislative branches of the government, if they pass an act and then signed by the governor, they can certainly skip the site plan review process to do this. You could certainly ask the planning board for some assistance in going through this some type of abbreviated process. I don't know how you're going to get all of those restaurants in before the planning board to do that.
Right.
Perhaps you could use the town planner to assist your board in making those decisions. If the legislation as drafted goes through, then you have the authority to allow them to skip that process. It's a temporary thing. I believe it only goes through November in the latest act that's been drafted.
Yeah, I believe that's right. Yeah.
So it falls on you. It's something that you can do, but you're not required to do.
Well, it's an issue, and we need to encourage the restaurant owners to move forward, to come to town hall, to discuss their issues at the select board, to call their select board members for assistance also, and we can act as on their part. I encourage everybody to do their darndest, be creative, come up with some great creative ideas to open your businesses up in a safe way. Mr. Tattlebaum.
Is there is there an ad hoc group we can put together? Because I think these people are going to want to jump and move fast, and that can be dangerous in one sense, but it also can be invigorating, and they can do something that's right. But they need to be able to know what they're doing is going to work, and it's viable, and it's safe or not, and they're going to want answers. If we don't, it will be the Wild West. They'll do the best they can, throw it together, and who knows if it's going to be safe or not. Do we have a handful? It's going to be quick because they're all going to come together. We look at the plan, we give it an approval, and we let them open, and then we regulate it. But I think we need to be able to have a handful of people with authority to understand how to legislate that.
Well,
Is that realistic?
A couple of the members of the board here should get involved, and Mr. Savastano. I think also, I know Mr. Steve Silverstein mentioned that he'd be more than happy to, because he's doing that in New Bedford also and helping the mayor on that side, come up with good plans to organize and get these people into business. But the main thing, again, I keep using that word, be creative. Everybody's smart. They've been in business a long time. They'll do the right thing. But maybe we can encourage that. Maybe we can get DCTV involved. They need to be able to call and get answers. That's what I think. So they need to call the select board, and Mr. McGinnis can pan off some of this stuff to some of the select board members to help call these restaurant owners and understand their concerns and give them some guidance.
This gets difficult because, generally, like Attorney Savastano was saying earlier, the planning board has a process in place for things like this, the site plan review. The governor's order is allowing the town to circumvent that, which is okay. But then what are the criteria that the board wants to tell these establishments that want outdoor seating? I mean, they're going to say, I want outdoor seating. Do we have any minimum criteria? I've been working with the planning director and the building commissioner on just kind of seeing what's required as a minimum in the police chief, just so we have some consistency of what the expectation is. And I realize these businesses do need to be creative, but I think there should be some minimum criteria to really make it happen. I mean, if it's just not feasible or safe, then we need to kind of demonstrate that, or have them demonstrate it by trying to meet some minimal criteria.
Well,
What is the deadline for they can start opening outside?
Monday.
Yeah, they 25% of their capacity will be allowed in the patio areas. Given that said, that shortens up a lot of area. The opportunity to recap some money, but at least they're going to get some money rather than sitting.
I think we need to mobilize here. These restaurant owners need our help and direction, and they need answers. And I would be more than happy to volunteer my time. There's no question the planning board is the authoritative. They can educate all of us as to what works and what doesn't work, and then we can pan out and visit these restaurants. I think we need a handful of people qualified to get out there and help these people get going. It's already Monday. If we don't, they're going to do what they want anyway.
Yeah, they're going to.
That's not the answer.
No, it isn't, because then how do you reel them in after that?
These restaurants, we owe them help.
Yeah.
And immediate help in whatever that takes. I'm not sure what it is.
I volunteer. Dave Tattlebaum volunteers. Mr. McDonald, I guarantee, is a businessman. He'll volunteer.
We got to engage the planning board, the building department, as a group. We need to mobilize.
No, John, you won't volunteer?
I think they can decide on their own. I think they don't need our interference.
Well,
that's not the answer, John.
Guidance, John. We want them to succeed, but
I fully understand.
To make a bad decision.
Yeah.
And which could cost them dearly. So, Mr. Savasano, you have any input on that?
No, I just think we have some professional staff in the building with the town planner and the building inspector, building commissioner to assist as well.
Great. Yep. And those are the people we need to gather and help these people get back into business in a legitimate way where they're not going to get hurt.
Right. But again, I wouldn't recommend that the board vote on anything until the House
Oh, yeah, no, I agree.
passes both houses and signed by the governor.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
All right. Maybe I missed a little bit here, but if a restaurant wants to have outdoor seating, do they have to come to the town to get permission to do so, or can they just open up?
Good question.
They need licensing from the local licensing authority, which, according to the governor's order, is the select board.
All right.
So,
So that would be a restaurant with alcohol or without alcohol, correct?
correct.
Okay. So we don't know who is going to want to do what at this time. So my suggestion would be that if this was to come to fruition from the state, that each business is going to have to come up with some kind of a plan, and it doesn't have to be, an engineered plan. It can be just drawn out, but they have to show where they're going to have seating, how much they're going to have seating, and how are they going to protect the public from traffic. Because what I don't want to see, because pretty much we all know the restaurants in town. We all know that there are restaurants that have the ability to have outdoor seating. We also know that there are restaurants that don't have that ability, and one of them is in the plaza that David's business is at. There's no outdoor seating area except the parking lot, and the question is, I don't want to, I'll outdoor seat no matter what, but I don't know if I want to sit in the middle of a parking lot and eat something and just have somebody just like drive right through,
That's the problem.
There are plenty of restaurants in town that have drive-through capabilities. We're not going to see outdoor seating. I don't think we're going to see outdoor seating from them, and that's mostly the fast food chains and whatnot. I don't know. I don't want to start naming names and restaurants as to whether or not they can do it or not, but there are definitely restaurants in this town that don't have the ability to do any kind of outdoor seating facilities without being in a parking lot. And then there are those that do have the ability to do some limited seating. Some already have outdoor seating and could expand. So whether or not these restaurants will do, the people that should be reviewing it should be the building inspector, the planning director, and the town administrator getting together and saying, okay, is this workable or not? I don't think we as select board members should get involved in that, because we have to ultimately make that decision. And I don't want anybody saying, well, we get to vote on restaurants A, B, C, and D, and E. We vote in the affirmative for A, B, and C, but D and E doesn't get voted on. And D and E had select person X and Y, helping them out, and the A, B, and C had X person, Z, X, and W. So they're going to say, well, that one pushed it. I don't want finger pointing because of this. So it should come down to the professionals that deal with this, which would be the town administrator, the building inspector, and the planning board. Planning director.
But they have
Our job in this is to show leadership. That's what the governor's saying. I'm not saying I'm going to go into the restaurant and be capable of saying this is right or wrong. What I am saying is we need to mobilize the people who are qualified. So when the restaurant comes forward and says, here's our plan, we've got it ready for them with as many people as we can put together to say, okay, let's look at the plan and review it and do it quickly, because these people are going to want to open right away.
Well, we'll know the people, because if we're going to say that if the people that are going to review this and come before, and their recommendation is going to come before the board, it's going to be the town administrator, the building inspector, and the planning director. The three people. You don't want to get all of a sudden get a whole bunch of other people in there. These are the three people that we have hired to take care of what we need to do in this town. The planning director has all the stuff available to her for the guidance. The building inspector knows the layouts, and the town administrator knows exactly what we want. So those are the three people that should be doing this. Those are the three people that the restaurants need to go to. It's all going to come to our office anyway. It has to come through our office. because we're the licensing authority. And once we don't know exactly how many we're going to get. We could get 2, we could get 3, we could get 40. Well, I don't know if we have 40 restaurants in town, but I mean, we could get that many. And
Whatever
then
it
at
is.
that point in time, Sean can say, okay, listen, David, I forgot her name.
Christine?
Christine, thank you. Jeez. David and Christine, we need to meet 10 o'clock tomorrow morning to discuss, these things on restaurant requirements. We need to get it so that the select board can vote on it at their next meeting. Okay, boom, come on up. Let's take a look at it. Is it workable? If they provide a decent enough plan, Christine can look at it on Google to the area to make sure that it's correct. And David can go out there and actually physically view the whole thing and then get the answer. The less people involved in this and the more knowledgeable people involved in this, the better it's going to go.
But the planning board's criteria is not going to be the same as it was last week.
Right. And that's something that can be relayed to Christine.
Right. That has to be understood because it won't work. Their criteria will be so extreme that nobody will open. So, Mr. Gracie.
Yeah, in addition to the group of 3 that Mr. McDonald mentioned, the Board of Health's got to be involved in that in some aspect.
100%.
Okay.
Because what I've seen other states do is there's things involving both social distancing of tables, seats. Menus have to be disposable. They cannot be the standard menus. Utensils have to be completely wrapped and only given to the people once they've sat down. Condiments have to be individual pieces and not a group. Salt and pepper shaker, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of little details that, from a health standpoint, have to be looked at also. So I agree that we should have some experts and set aside to do that kind of stuff before we ultimately end up voting yes or no for somebody.
Mr. Savastano.
There are so many restaurants in town, though. You're going to it seems like you're just talking about let's assume every restaurant wants to open. Until a restaurant approaches you with a plan, I don't think that Christine and Dave have the resources to go around and examine every restaurant for every possible contingency.
No.
I think you need to wait for them to come to you with a plan, and then they'll review the plan.
But that's what I'm saying. Once they apply at the select board's office, Sean will know who wants the permit, and then now you utilize the staff. You use Chris, you use Christine, you use David, and vet the request. I think that's fairly simple. That's the simplest way of getting it done, and nobody can finger point that we're doing this because one person favored the other person, that type of thing. And we get out of that.
Mr. McGinnis, how many phone calls did you get this morning?
I don't know offhand, but we've got a number of them, probably 10.
Yeah, and that's going to continue tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Mr. Gracie.
Yeah, what I'd also be concerned of is whether the businesses are aware that they would have to come before someone in the town to get approved, because they may already think, I've got a common vic license, I've got an alcohol license, I'm all set. I just need to go outside and set up some tables and let come in. So
an umbrella up.
Yeah, so I'm also concerned with that folks need to know what the process really is.
Yeah.
Mr. McDonald, I agree with your basic philosophy of having the most qualified people in town, and you mentioned who they are. We could end up with 40 or 50 of these restaurants. I don't know how many, but okay, if it's 10, no problem. But they're going to want answers fast, and I want to be as active as we can to make sure that we're able to handle it. The people you mentioned are all straight out right now too. The Board of Health is. They have the time now to put. So we have to be careful to make sure that we have the people available, and maybe have to extend ourselves for a short time, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to get this stuff approved and open, whatever that might take. And I'm concerned we're going to have a deluge of people who want to do the right thing, they want to open, and they're just going to wait around for us to get to it because we don't have the staff or the criteria established as quickly as we can.
I am not an expert in logistics when it comes to restaurant seating. I've worked in restaurants. I've worked as a bartender. I've worked as a bouncer in a bar. I have never, well, yeah, I have never, I don't know how to plan seating or anything like that.
You got bounced
I
in a
don't
bar.
have that expertise. If we do have a deluge, these businesses have been closed for over 60 days already. And if we need to meet just for this purpose, you know, if an extra Monday, if you know, if we're meeting next on the 8th, okay? If the next meeting is supposed to be the 22nd, I believe.
Yes.
If there are other if say during that time between now and the 22nd, we get X numbers, and then all of a sudden we have some on the 19th and the 23rd. Well, you know something, let's just hold a quick meeting on the 29th. We'll be able to post it for this particular purpose.
Yeah.
You know, if we need to meet via Zoom, which is very easy to do, for 30 minutes to vet out outdoor seating, then let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we can push the issue for them a lot quicker instead of waiting for every 2 weeks.
I agree with you, but we got to compact that much more. 29th, these people are going to have to wait 3 weeks to open their
They
place.
don't want to wait till Thursday.
That's
They
not
want it
fair.
tomorrow.
If it means we got to meet twice a week to get it done, whatever it takes, we need to do. And I can't predict what that's going to be.
Mr. Gracie.
Yeah, I think the minimum we need to do in preparation for this is to have a situation where people submit a plan, fill out an application, and it goes before the people that were previously mentioned for a sign off on what the plan is, to let the experts actually look at what their plan is and make a judgment on it and sign it before it comes to us. And then we can, as David said, we can meet at whatever frequency we need to handle whatever volume there is.
But there's some very serious things at hand here on the public health side that we're going to need to have a checklist and to give to all these people. They're going to need a very different way to serve their customers. Menus that are usually in most cases are going to be throwaway menus, or some of what I've seen they're doing it on phones so they can look at the phone and look at the menu. Throwaway plates, knives, forks, spoons, individual. You can't have salt and pepper shakers. You can't have ketchup. You can't have vinegar. You know, you have to have all this in place. And you have, besides that, you have to have areas where you can wash your hands throughout that outside dining. And more importantly now, will they be able to go into the restaurant? I know they're doing it in Rhode Island. Will they be able to go in the restaurant and go to the restroom, use the restroom, and come right out? Then that restroom has to be cleaned. All of these things are going to have to be thought of.
Isn't that part of the DPH guidelines for the restaurants? So you use the DPH guidelines.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel on this.
No, but I'm just saying they need to see that. They need to be, when they come in to make an application, they need to be given this criteria that they need to meet on their own.
That would be part of the permission.
That's important that we do that, and we know that they need to know. I'm really concerned about the bathroom issue, and the restaurant owners have to be very, very concerned as we might be, that they do due diligence to clean.
Every restaurant owner that is closed right now or doing takeout is going to do the right thing.
I hope so. Yep.
Because they know if they don't, that they could possibly lose their license.
Yeah. And
especially if there's alcohol involved.
Do not want that to happen. We know.
Correct.
That. Mr. Tattlebaum.
I have a question for Mr. McGinnis. How well are we prepared as a town to create this criteria, whether it be Board of Health criteria or buildings, size and scope and protection, so we can then be prepared so when we have this criteria set, so we can, or do we have some work to be done here with the experts in town to get something ready so we're prepared to say these are the basic rules we need to follow. Now come to us with your plan. Let's see how it conforms. How ready are we for that?
We started discussing those today and pulling information together. We wanted to talk to the board to find out what their direction was. So we'll go through it now and create this. We have an application form that has general criteria, including a site plan that it's asking for. Yep. But we'll also, you bring up a good point about following the DPH guidelines for restaurants. Yep. We'll include those guidelines.
Yep.
And it's, if I'm understanding the board correctly, it's really a case-by-case basis to review the plans and the applications and to see that they get, are meeting, being as compliant as possible in regard to the governor's orders and the health and safety of the patrons.
And
One
flexible as
doesn't fit all.
possible, within reason.
Right.
But one doesn't fit all.
No. So there's no set criteria.
Everything would have to be examined.
Some basic rules,
Right.
First and foremost, the criteria has to be the safety and well-being of the patrons, the employees, and the restaurant.
Yep.
That's the first and foremost.
Yep.
After that,
Good
it's
luck.
really simple.
Yep. Good luck.
Sean McGinnis, do you have, are you able to put this kind of thing together with your staff there? What do you think you stand with that?
The goal, internally is to provide support to the public and the businesses in town, and that's a priority. They've been out of business for a number of days or months, and we want to make sure we can get them back up and running according to the governor's orders as efficiently and quickly as possible, and safely. So, we'll make it a priority when we hear from these businesses that want to reopen and do our best to find a solution so they can reopen outdoors.
Yeah.
In our internal discussions, we realize that this is a priority now.
So meeting, like for instance, being ready to meet on a more regular basis or intermittent basis for these approvals, it would be one thing we could do for sure as a select board.
Yes. So, our goal, we'll see how the requests come in. We got some. We have phone calls currently, but when we get formal requests, we'll have them put together information, and then once we do, we'll review it. If we're getting one or two, we'll review those right away and put those on the next select board meeting. If we get a glut like 10 or 15 or 20, it'll be all hands on deck to review them as best we can and just to pass them off, and then have suggest multiple meetings with this board in order to get them approved. And
it sounds like that the guidelines we have are fairly available, and it should be pretty easy to put together basic guidelines. It sounds like our job, the best thing we can do is to meet regularly and as quickly as possible to get these people up and running.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And do we have that commitment from everybody in the board here that feels the same way?
We'll all be happy for half hour to give a half hour of a Zoom meeting and pass 10 or 15 places.
I mean, I'm available for a Zoom meeting 9 to 6, 9 to 7. So.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. I think we'll have no problem.
We need to do whatever it takes to get this done, protect our people, our customers, and our restaurants, and get these places open.
Mr. Savastano.
Typically, when a restaurant will come before the planning board for a site plan review, they'll present a plan. So it may be unfeasible for some of the smaller restaurants to come up with an engineer to draft a full-blown plan, but they should have some kind of drawing or plan showing some dimensions and the locations of tables to at least get started.
Great.
Yeah, there's one guy that in town that's going to put, he's got a bunch of picnic tables. So he's going to put that in a parking lot area, and he's got quite a few, so there could be maybe just 4 people on a picnic table, 2 at each. And that gives them plenty. I mean, people are using their brains. They're getting creative, and I want to see them. I want to see them to make some money. They really desperately need to make money.
Excuse me, Mr. Mickelson?
Yes.
Chris here. Sorry, I don't have the camera on, so I was trying to do the electronic hand wave. So just want to mention just a couple quick things. There is a lot of guidance that's out there already. The health department has been speaking with a lot of restaurants. We do have a lot of restaurants that are interested, so we've been getting phone calls as well. We don't have to be part of any review. I would also just like to suggest, so that the restaurants don't get blindsided, that we include public safety in this review team. We've got fire lanes, fire hydrants, and other considerations that are beyond the expertise of the general government staff. So, I'd just like to offer that suggestion for public safety purposes.
That's a great idea, and that's very important. That's at the top of the list, public safety.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So we can't put the picnic tables out in the middle of the street then?
Not in the street. We're going to bring them down near your, we're going to put them in your parking lot.
Unless we do what Boston did, which is close off some streets.
Yeah, there are a lot of them are doing it. New Bedford's talking about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we could.
Oh, we can't close off State Road.
You could close up Elm Street or something like that and let them have a good time. Once or twice a week. Anything else on COVID-19, Mr. McGinnis?
No, that is it. I think I brought you up to speed.
What about that email I sent you? You sent us, but I sent you a copy of it. You said you sent it in the packet.
I have the beach stickers.
Just to make everybody aware that there's some kind of peaceful protest.
Oh well, that's not COVID related.
No. That could be an announcement at the end.
All right. MPO self-nomination Serped. Mr. McGinnis.
Yes. So Serped has begun a self-nomination process to elect 2 selectmen to serve on the Southeastern Massachusetts MPO, the committee responsible for the development and review of transportation policies, priorities, and projects for the Serped region. The 4 selectmen that currently serve on this board are from Middleborough, Somerset, Fairhaven, and Westport. The terms for the representative from Fairhaven and Westport will expire this August, and they're seeking to be re-election. But this board can self-nominate somebody from the board to also be considered.
So I just want to make a comment. I've self-nominated myself twice now, and both times the particular member or members decided to run for re-election, and of course the present board votes on them. So the chances of getting a new member, the only way you could do that would be, let's use an example of Charlie Murphy running for select board and doesn't make it this year. He then the seat would be available. But I for one was like banging my head against the wall. So if anybody else wants to do it,
Steve Ouellette from Westport is not running, so there's an empty seat.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
Well, I'm just saying it was very difficult because they renominated them. But if anybody,
well, do you want to give it another shot this year, Stan?
No, I don't want to. No, I've had enough of it.
Oh, you haven't been on it.
No, it was difficult even trying to get on it.
Yeah, but there's no openings. Now there's an opening.
Now there's an opening.
I'm asking if somebody else wants to do it.
Well, I'm going to defer to you, but that way it's not 3 strikes, you're out.
I'll think
but
about it.
If you're not, what the heck? I'll have another all region agency that PO'd at me. I don't mind doing it.
Okay, be my guest.
I already peed off the county commissioners in that board, so why not something else?
Oh. So do you want to do it, or do you want me to?
I'll self-nominate myself. Just send the paperwork in with my name in it.
No, it's in your packet. It's in the packet.
My packet is on an iPad. I didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, so the form, if you want to vote, the form is due by June 4th, and if you want to vote, I can fill the form out and sign for you that you want to be nominated.
All right, I'll take care of it tomorrow.
I can email you just the form, and then
I can download it. I can download it on the main computer. I just won't be able to hear anything. Not that it makes any noises when I download it anyway. So,
do we have to vote on?
No, I was just going to ask. Do we need to vote on that, Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
The motion.
Donald be the representative that we choose.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oh. So we have a motion to have Mr. McDonald be our representative, and a second, Mr. Herron. Mr. Tattlebaum?
Yes.
Gracie?
Yes.
Mr. Herron?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Can I vote no? No. Yes.
And Mr. Mickelson? Yes. You are the representative. Good luck.
Well, I got to get voted on by them.
Right. Good luck.
In our hearts, though, you're our representative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me you were a bouncer at a bar. They'll really want you.
Yeah, they'll like that. You probably met most of them at the same bar.
Chances are I could have too.
Yeah. All right. And this is the next thing up right now is really important. And we had Sue Guiducci put this thing together. And are you in there now, Sue? Here you are. Thank you. So it is the farm listings. And I'll let you take over, Ms. Guiducci.
This work was pretty much based on a earlier version that was created in probably around 2008. And at the time, we had 33 farm businesses, so to speak, which includes equine nurseries and anything pretty much related to agriculture. So going back through and reviewing all of the contacts, we have the numbers are stable. We still have the same number of businesses. Actually, some new additions. A lot of, I don't know if you listened to some of the statistics, but the average age of a farmer in pretty much in our community is around 65. So because of the good work that the town of Dartmouth and the good decisions we've made over the course of years, probably starting back in the 80s, when there was some serious development pressure in town in conversion from farmland to residential, we've been able to maintain the same numbers. And because of our approach, we've also been able to attract some young farmers to replace the ones that have retired or just now, maybe not so much retired, but are now in a advisory or mentor capacity. We have a lot of diversity, as you can see from the list. We have a raw milk dairy. We have a state award-winning cider mill, which is part of Dartmouth Orchards in North Dartmouth. We now have alpacas, which we didn't have before, which of course provides a fiber product. And we have a wide array of vegetable and fruit producers. Since the onset of COVID-19, the good news on our end is that the livestock producers cannot keep up with the demand. I'll go back to another old statistic, and that on an average, the food on your plate traveled about 1,500 miles. So people are now more interested in getting their food locally because it passes through fewer hands, and you know the hands that it has passed through. So the farmers that are growers they can't move the product to a saleable point fast enough for what everybody wants. But it seems that most farmers are doing the best that they can do, because that's all up to Mother Nature. But the demand is high, and we're seeing a lot of community support.
Great job, really. I'm so happy when we first talked about this. I don't know how far we've got on the seafood side. You might want to. You want to talk about that, Sue?
Well, in our world, we consider anything that you can harvest as part of. That's the same thing. So whether you're harvesting from the soil or the sea, it's all part of the same. It's the same. So we try to also include fish, because that's really very much a part of our cultural heritage, as is agriculture. and it's a little bit more of a challenge. We're trying to work it out. A lot of this work, people have touched upon it in the past, but have not necessarily moved from selling wholesale to direct to the consumer. And that was also something very typical for farmers early on, that it was much easier just to do what they've been doing all along. But when they realize that they can actually add to their bottom line by selling direct to consumer, I think it's just a matter of education and sort of maybe trying to help them with changing their mindset a little bit.
And I believe the state has loosened up the regulations a bit on the seafood side, and made it a lot easier for the boat owners to get proper permitting and quickly get the permitting.
Yes, but it's still going to take a little bit of work to get somebody to commit, because there are other issues. For example, liability insurance. That is like, as everybody knows that runs a business, that's a necessity if you're going to be handling food.
Yeah.
So we're just going to try and gather as much information as we can and share it with the people that might benefit from it. Yeah. But you'll see that as part of that list, we've also included our one sawmill, and I believe it's our last sawmill in town. And that's also, they also maintain a natural resource, a sustainable resource. So I think that it's an opportunity for people to support that business as well.
Yeah. And to also to tell the residents that the list is on the website. Am I correct, Mr. McGinnis?
Yes, it is on the homepage of the website.
And DCTV, yes, no? I believe.
It was when it's posted on the website, it goes onto social media and Facebook.
Okay. So this list, I encourage the residents to support the local farmers, not just because they're local, but you know, we're so much more concerned about what we're consuming nowadays. And we're so fortunate to have a list this large to be able to go out on a regular basis and get freshly picked vegetables and fruit and other items that they put together, jams and jellies, and there's a winery and et cetera, et cetera. But let's support our locals and get some nice fresh vegetables. Mr. Gracie.
Yeah, I just want to thank Sue for the list. And it's a nice comprehensive list, and it's all in one place. Because if somebody had asked me how many we had, I wouldn't have been able to put this list together by memory for sure.
Great. I'm so happy for it. Thank Mr. Tattlebaum.
I would like to congratulate the kind of group that Sue has put together at AgCom. That we saw them when they met with us. They're young, old, experienced, but the passion that Sue has always delivered with the experience she has and she's doing, I think, an incredible asset to the town. What she's done, this is just a wonderful example of what she does, and we're lucky to have you, Sue, and thank you for the work you've done.
Well, I mean, it's really always has been a group effort. My only, when we did it the first time, if you've ever seen the old brochure, we actually had one of the students from the unified arts program at the high school design the cover sheet, which he did the illustration. And it's too bad that we couldn't take advantage of it this time around, but maybe the next time, if we have an opportunity to have some funding for a hard copy, we could do that then. And I need to just explain that I left off one critical farm, and it was just an oversight. But since the original, we now have the Dartmouth Y, the Share the Harvest, and that is not on that list. But I will get the listing and include that as well.
That's great.
I think that that pamphlet would be something that residents in town, maybe businesses, would like to contribute to maybe get that printed again, because it's a nice job and update. it's something that we can pass out broadly around. I think you ought to knock on some doors and we can probably get that printed again, help you out.
Yeah, and maybe once that's printed, it can go to all these people that run these farms and farm stands.
Sure.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. So thank you for your work as usual.
Welcome.
Always precise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so George Sansucci, Special Municipal Employee. We need to vote on Mr. Sansucci.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Mr. Tattlebaum,
Yes.
Gracie,
Yes.
Mr. Herron,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Mickelson, yes. Reappointment to Constable Ian Daly.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to reappoint Constable Ian Daly in a second. Mr. Tattlebaum,
Yes.
Gracie,
Yes.
Mr. Herron,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Mickelson, yes. Reappointed Constable Ian Daly. Okay, this ought to be good. Annual reappointments and attendance. So we did receive initially maybe 2 attendance records, and then we've had a few that came in here and there. One, a couple of yesterday, not yesterday. One came in today, but all in all, I don't think we have 100% participation in this attendance requirement. So, motion. I would. What would the board? I know this was initiated by Mr. McDonald, so I'll let him talk first. So,
Okay, thanks. Just looking over the list right now, I don't think we need to. Do we need to do anything with the police review committee? Wait a minute, where is it? Okay, well, we got an attendance record for the police station committee, but they're not on the agenda because we don't need them anymore, right? Correct?
well, no, they wanted to keep it going just in case they, for whatever reason, that they might have some funding that they.
That's for the old police station.
No, not the reuse review committee.
What we're talking about is the committee, the construction of the new police.
Oh,
station.
yeah.
Right.
I think you want to keep that committee in place until the building that's warranted for a year. So,
Okay, so, but it's not on the agenda, so we don't do anything on it. It's not there. It's not listed.
okay.
So we can put it on the next agenda.
I mean, at this point in time, I think because of this, under the circumstances with everything going on, I just reappoint everybody with the exception of the Board of Public Works because that's going to be a vacancy. We should announce the vacancy for that. So just reappoint, and it doesn't look like there's any appointments for the Agricultural Commission. So
No.
reappoint Sandy Gosselin as the Animal Control Officer. Christopher Frias to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee.
Yep.
Richard Mallon, Richard Golan, and Patricia Swearenduck to the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
Gloria Bancroft, Thomas Yenna, Arthur Thibodeau, Michael Roy, and William Chandler to the Cornell Pond Advisory Committee. Allison Nastansky and Eleanor White to the Council on Aging. Karen Quigley to the Cultural Council. Christine LeBlanc to the Greater New Bedford Refuse District. Hearing officers, Scott Lake and Derek Kenny. The Historical Commission, Philip Baker, Judy Lund, and Jordan Burnson. The Library Committee, Building Committee, Stanley Buslick. Myself as the representative from the Select Board. Suzanne McDonald, Bruce Brooks, Heidi Brooks, Mary Ellen DeFrias. Why am I listed twice? Michael Prue. The Parking Enforcement Officer, Stephen Mello. The Police Station Use Review Committee, Susan Crosby, Nathan Silva, David Canberra, Andrew Garcia. The Russell's Mills Historic District, Betsy Powell. The Sister City Delegation Committee, Mary Creed and Belmira Barrios. John, you want to be the select board rep on the soil?
Yes.
Okay. Soil Conservation Commission, John Herron is a select board rep. Special Police Officers, Alan Shaw, Victor Porto, Jeffrey Lewis, Michael Gill, Mark Zielinski, and Nancy Thibodeau.
You forgot Greg
The Turf
Barnes.
Committee, Stanley
Forgot Greg
Mickelson.
Barnes.
Huh?
You forgot Greg Barnes, the South Coast Bikeway Alliance.
Okay, I'll get back to him, just like you bounce around with me. Turf Committee, Stan Mickelson and David Talbot. The South Coast Bikeway Alliance, Gregory Barnes. The Veterans Advisory Board, Norman Gunderson, James Tooley, Christopher Pereira, Peter Fusco. The Waterways Management Committee, Kevin Murphy. And the Youth Commission, Kate Kircher and Renee DeRoches. And if I abominated anybody's name, I truly apologize.
Mr. Gracie.
Yeah, I disagree. I think we should only be doing the ones that have submitted the attendance records. I mean, rules are rules. And some people were able to do it just fine. So I don't think we should be excusing the requirement that we set and asked for.
Only this year.
For any year.
No, I made a motion.
McDonald had
so-
a motion. I'll second Mr. McDonald's motions for this year.
We have a motion and a second to accept all the names mentioned. Mr. Tattlebaum. Wake up.
I'm waiting for divine intervention. I do understand. I agree with Frank in the sense that that we have a rule and we should know. We give a little leeway. Can we still ask for these? The ones that are left.
We sent out two. Is that correct, Mr. McGinnis? Twice. We sent
How
out.
many? What do we have? A quarter of them or less?
Probably less. A lot less.
A lot less.
And it was sent out twice.
So they probably don't exist.
I don't know.
Well, if you had it, why wouldn't you just send it in?
Total disregard, I guess.
No, they don't have them.
Gracie wants to not nominate him
They don't have them.
because
I'd like to give them another week to comply.
well,
They don't have them, Frank.
I bet you.
Why wouldn't they make them up?
It ought to be available. There's no committee that meets that doesn't take attendance. And if they are not doing that, then shame on them because they know this is a requirement. This is not the first year we've done this.
Right.
so you want to send out, Mr. McGinnis, send it out again, please?
We will do that.
All right, then let's just push off let's just push off everything until Monday.
Right.
All right.
I withdraw my motion.
I'm okay with that.
Motion is withdrawn. Second is withdrawn?
Yes.
Okay. We'll wait till Monday on the 8th.
Do you have to reread them all again, Sean?
No, you will.
Mr. McGinnis,
Yes.
please stress in the send out that if they want to be on the committee, they've got to comply.
I will do that.
We've refused people before because they either didn't comply or they had lousy attendance.
Oh, it either has to be the chairman of the committee or the secretary of the committee.
Yep.
All right. Old business, Bliss Corner update.
Yes. So we got a call from DEP about a week or so ago that they wanted to have a meeting with representatives from the town to introduce members from the Environmental Protection Agency that will be providing support and testing on the project. They had talked about this previously about getting the EPA involved. So the meeting was with some town staff, some select board members, and members of the DEP and members of the EPA as an introductory meeting, just talking about their process to continue to sample properties. The EPA has a mobile lab that will be based out of Chelmsford where they'll collect samples and bring them up to Chelmsford for testing. And that was it. So they did not have much to say about. They're still on the same timeline. They had hoped to have a public meeting in the spring, but with the COVID issue, there was not an opportunity. As soon as there is another opportunity for people to get together, I think my understanding was they would have a public meeting. But until then, all the information is on their website. Anything new they post, they share with our health director, Chris Michaud. So any information and any testing that's passed along to us, we pass along to the board as well. So.
But I believe they're going to send out some correspondence to the residents in the area, and the correspondence will be in English and Portuguese.
Correct.
And they will be in the area at all the time when they're testing, and they want to talk with the residents. If they initiate the conversation, they'd like to make them feel comfortable to have their properties tested to get on the list, and I encourage people to do that also. It was a good meeting, by the way, Mr. Tattlebaum.
Have we gotten a number activity from residents, calls in or letters or much activity, communication?
I not through my office. I have not. I can check with the health director to see if he has.
Well, John's a good contact. He's had a lot of contact down there. Have you, John?
Yeah, Bliss Corner?
Yes.
I've talked to one or two of the neighbors recently, yes.
Yeah, because you've spent some time down there, so.
Yeah.
And thank you for that, by the way. All right, Cecil Smith.
No new updates. No new updates. The fishing pier is in the hands of both councils for both entities, so we're still waiting to get that back.
Before we get, I know we already moved on from Lake Nokichoke, but I just wanted to make one mention of Lake Nokichoke. I just want to give a shout out to the neighbors around Lake Nokichoke who spent a Saturday and Sunday cleaning up the lake. They removed God knows what out of the lake, and they did a fabulous job. And I just want to make sure that they're acknowledged for the work that they've done around that area. Also, I don't have all their names, but it was listed in an article in the Dartmouth Week. Also, special shout out to Ian McGonigal. Ian has taken upon himself to maintain the cleanliness of Lucy Little Road, and it's amazing to see the amount of trash that he comes up with at any given time. It seems like Lucy Little Road has become a dump for nips, tires, and whatnot. But a shout out to Ian for his work in doing that. I know the town was unable to do any kind of a Dartmouth cleanup, but I know there are neighbors out there that are doing a little bit in their own little thing, in their own little time, in their own little area. And I know everybody in town appreciates everybody's work when it comes to cleaning the crap that people leave behind, thrown out of their cars or flying off trucks and whatnot, and making their neighborhood just a little bit cleaner. So I, as a selectman, and I know all five of us, appreciate the people's efforts on this. So thank you.
I wonder if Ian would like to move to Tucker Road and continue his practices.
Well, Lucy, the first round that he did, he came up with almost like a dozen bags of stuff, and then there's just the amount of trash is just, it's unbelievable what people just throw away. And I really hate to say this, but the town lends itself to, dumpers, because there are remote spots of this town that nobody sees, and, just a quick toss here and there, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we see it on heavily traveled roads.
Yeah, once in a while you get caught. People do get caught. So
yeah. It's a shame.
Yep.
All right, so we have May 4th, 2020 and May 11th, 2020 minutes to vote on.
They look fine to me. Motion to approve both.
Second.
We have a motion to approve both May 4th in 2020 and May 11th, 2020, both minutes. Mr. Tattlebaum.
Yes.
Gracie.
Yes.
Mr. Herron,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Mickelson, yes. Minutes have been voted.
Selectman Mickelson?
Yes.
Before I forget, the board needs to vote to stamp the warrants for May 2nd to the 11th, May 9th to the 18th, and May 23rd to June 1st.
Motion to stamp those warrants as noted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to stamp the warrants as just noted. Mr. Tattlebaum?
Yes.
Gracie?
Yes.
Mr. Herron?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Mickelson, yes. Please stamp the, all right. Information, you wanted to, do we have an opening that we have to,
Yes, just like to make an announcement that the board is seeking vacancy, requests for consideration to be appointed to the Board of Public Works. All resumes showing your interest and your experience that you could lend to the Board of Public Works. Please forward it to the Select Board's office as soon as possible. And of course, that'll be on the website at some point in time tomorrow.
So one other thing, and I guess we need to announce the graduation parade for this Sunday at 9 o'clock, starting at the high school.
Yep.
And let me just see here. Let me get this right.
Bakerville Road.
High school,
Road,
555 Bakerville
West,
Road. It's going to
Gulf
go down Gulf Road and over the Padenham Bridge,
Yep.
down Elm Street, and turn right onto Slocum Road to the middle school. So we invite people to come out and celebrate and keep your distance. And there's plenty of area. Plenty of area to see.
Is that a car parade?
Pardon?
Is that a car parade like other communities?
Yes, car parade.
Yeah. So enjoy and get out there and support the graduating class of 2020.
Yep. I was stuck in Fairhaven when they had their parade. Found a way to get around it. By the time I got to Acushnet, it was all over, at least on that end. But they appeared to have a great time. There was a lot of support from the community for the seniors that were driving in the cars, and it looked really good. And I think this is very important because the senior class, no matter where you are in this country, is missing out on a lot of things that we may have enjoyed when we were seniors in high school. I'm not saying if we all did or not, but they may have the opportunity at a later date, but it still is important. It's almost like a rite of passage, and they're missing out on this. But from the things I see on social media from the parents and from the kids, they're taking it in stride. And this class of people from this year, no matter where they are, seems to be a pretty good, strong bunch. And with that, one of the things I do want to mention, and thank you for reminding me about this parade, is a huge, huge shout out to Mary Waite and other parents who had for a couple of weekends had the princess and cartoon character parade throughout the entire town. They had their first one was different neighborhoods, but the last one was just, it took all day, and they went throughout the entire town. People were dressed as Captain America, Wolverine, princesses, you name it, they were out there, and it was a great job, and it was received very well by a lot of the people in the community. A lot of the little kids were out there dressed as little princesses themselves, and Stanley was out there dressed as a princess, and he was waving. So we all had it was a great time. They came by my neighborhood, and it's amazing to see how people are reacting, with all this going on, and how resilient our community is. And I just I'm thrilled to live here. I really am, and I just can't think of I can't think of another better place to live, especially with all the people surrounding us.
My heart goes out to all of them, the teachers, the superintendent, and all of their staff. They've done a marvelous job with what they've had to work with. And so get out there for that parade and show your support for these kids. They deserve it. With that, do we want to have a conversation about the Brady Estates, or is that just for our...
That was just for your information.
Right. Okay, great.
Mr. Chairman?
Very interesting and very well written, by the way. Yes, Mr.
On the Brady Estates, I was wondering if we could have a future meeting with Steve Giosa from SciTex to come in and maybe give us a update on what's going on out there. And also another question, on the packet, we also received some information on the waterways about the $14,000 that was left in the...
yeah, I've got it right in front of me. I'm going to announce that also.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Yep. I don't know. I think the Brady Estates is I'm not a lawyer, but I think Mr. Savastano's letter says it all. We don't need any meetings. In my opinion, I'm only one of five, but read Mr. Savastano's letter. It says it all.
Right, but I think our financial...
Nothing we can discuss.
Our financial position in town has changed lately. Maybe we would want to reconsider.
No, it's up to the board.
I would suggest only reconsidering if Anthony says we should.
Yeah, I asked Anthony that and he said no. So anyway, we are in control of this. There's no reason for us to do anything less than relinquish the power that we have before us. I wouldn't do it, in my opinion. Anyway, Seaport Economic Council contract amendment request. I believe we have some money left from the Maritime Center, almost 15 grand. And we need to put a pump out there, a new pump. The pump that they had doesn't work. It's imperative that that pump is installed for the safety of the people on the water. It's very, very, it's not for, in this day and age with the things going on with COVID, we want to make the boaters as safe as possible. We need to get that money approved, and we need to buy that new pump and utilize some of that money with that, because I don't believe that's enough to pay for the whole thing. Is that correct, Mr. McGinnis?
That's correct. So what we asked for an extension to the grant funding for the Maritime Center to use the funds for the pump, which is allowable. We're waiting to get an estimate on the installation of the pump, and then find a funding source for that.
Yep. But at least we got another 15,000. But it's imperative that that pump gets installed, just for the boaters' safety. Okay. With that, I think we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gracie. Sorry.
You started to talk about the peaceful protest notice.
Oh, yeah. I saw this. I think you sent this to us, Mr. McGinnis.
Yes, it was forwarded to me. I sent it to the board.
I got two store owners in Paid Nerm that sent that to me also. Just to keep everybody aware that I know the chief knows about it. And so there'll be a police presence.
I suggest you talk about the dates and times, just so people.
Yeah. Let me see if I can pull it up again. Okay, it says Dartmouth Peaceful Protest, June 6th, 2020, 1 p.m. At the old Sears parking lot. I can't make it any larger. I don't know where to go. Okay. Near the old, let me see, what is it? Okay. And then 5 p.m. at Gulf Road and Water Street, Paid Nerm, meeting at Farm and Coast. Justice for George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. Mr. Tattleong.
I would just like to say that I am one member of this board. I'm a resident of this town and a resident of the United States. And I think the time has come for us to verbally talk about how we feel and try to make changes that only happen when we express ourselves and try to make a difference. And my own personal opinion, involvement would be that that's what's going to be required. And I think that a movement like this, we live in a small town. It's pretty safe. It's pretty homogeneous. But we live in a world that needs help, and especially in this town, especially in this country. And I for one, will do my damnedest to verbalize this and try to make something happen and something change. I think it's critically important.
As I said in the beginning with my prayer, we can only do better if we understand what other people go through, and that we've not gone through that, and we're lucky, but we need to support a peaceful effort. That's what we need to do. So with that, anybody else? We need to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, second. Mr. Tettelbaum.
Yes.
Mr. Gracie.
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald. Mr. Nichols.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned.